Not present. Chair Fields.
Present. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting? And if so, are there any corrections? All right.
Yeah, on page 6 of the agenda, it says commissioners ask questions of staff regarding the traffic study, the methodology used in the traffic study, etc. I don't recall anything about a traffic study, so I'm wondering if this is an accidental cut and paste kind of thing. I don't think there was a traffic study that we discussed.
Well, there was questions regarding traffic studies and concept.
Yeah, but it says commissioners ask questions of staff regarding the traffic study and the methodology. That
yeah.
implies to me that we actually reviewed the traffic study. So I mean, I'd like us to possibly modify that to
There was some discussion during that item of having the consultant speak to or look at an extensive study for traffic.
yeah,
but-
yeah, but and Jim, you mentioned that later. Jim Sullivan was promising a traffic, but in this portion, it makes it sound like we actually reviewed a traffic study, doesn't it?
There was commissioners that were that had discussed as traffic study, but you're welcome to put any comments and then we can review it separately.
How would you like it to read?
How about the staff, ask questions of staff regarding the traffic,
future
the potential traffic problems, period. Okay.
Any other comments on the
I
minutes?
would second that. I agree. The way it's written, it implies there was a traffic study done and we were studying it. It seems like Mr. Sullivan was offering to do a traffic study.
Okay.
And this was my comment, I think, right? I think this has to do with me, right? Yeah, okay.
So do you feel good about this?
I'm indifferent.
Okay. Indifference, okay. Do we have a motion to an amended version of the minutes incorporating Commissioner Zisser's proposal?
I move to approve the minutes of June 23rd with the amendment.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Can I have a roll call?
Commissioner Scissor,
Aye.
Commissioner Campcart,
aye.
Commissioner Alney,
Aye.
Chair Fields.
Aye. All right, the minutes pass. We did it. Communications and agenda modifications, the next item. Director Eastwood, do we have?
Only to note, this morning I sent an email to the commission with some clarifications regarding your item 3. Other than that, no modifications, postponements, or additional communications. Thank you.
Great. The next part of the meeting is oral requests. Is the point in the meeting, any member of the public may speak to the commission for up to 5 minutes. For any items that are not on the agenda tonight, be aware state law prohibits us from commenting on it or acting on it in this mission in part of this meeting. However, we may refer things to staff and it may come up in a future meeting. Would anyone in the chamber like to speak? I didn't see any cards. Do we have anybody? Susan? No? No, I'm just making sure everyone has a chance. I'm just making sure everyone is represented. Okay. You're very welcome. All right. And no one online. Fantastic. Closing oral requests. We're now in the public hearing. Before we start with the agenda, a brief overview of how we do this. For each item, I will announce the agenda. We'll talk about what the topic is. Our wonderful staff will give us a report. That will be followed up by questions from the commission. At that point, we will open it up for public comment. So everybody here who'd like to speak can speak for up to 2 minutes on the item. At that point, we will close public comment and then we will deliberate as a commission and ultimately vote on the item. Before we start the items, commissioners, do we have any disclosures on the items tonight? Going once.
I guess we do this thing where I've been to the sites. I know it.
That's good. Yeah. Same. All right. Well, then I will take us to our first item. The item is PLN 202658. This is recommending Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving a conditional use permit to allow the establishment of a contractor's equipment yard and a tree removal permit to allow removal of one pine tree. Per usual, our staff report will come from Mr. Daniel Fama. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening. Before you is an application for a conditional use permit and tree removal permit for property located at 1063 Dell Avenue. So this is an approximately 13,000 square foot lot located on Dell Avenue south of East Sunny Oaks within the city's light industrial zoning district in the corresponding light industrial general plan land use district. It is surrounded on all sides by industrial uses. The site was most recently used as a pet daycare, the West Valley Pet Lodge, and this was a use that was originally established through Planning Commission approval of a breeding and dog boarding kennel back in 1961. That also included use of a former residence as an office associated with that use. The site was also developed with dog runs, a pool, and accessory structures that have been demolished under separate permit following the closure of the West Valley Pet Lodge. So the application before you is to allow establishment of a landscaping contractor's equipment yard at the rear of the property, including an 8-foot tall sled screening fence. There are other site parking landscaping improvements that are reflected on the plans, and these constitute a minor change to the property's 1961 site approval. And so that detail is noted because this application does not incorporate a site architecture review permit and therefore also did not require review by the site architecture review committee. So in other words, had this not been a component of a conditional use, the improvements that you see in the site plan would have otherwise been simply ministerially approved by staff. But since the outdoor storage yard, the contractor's equipment yard rather, is subject to conditional use permit, the package includes all the associated improvements. As part of the application, there's also a request for a tree removal permit to remove a 24-inch pine tree that's located at the bottom left corner. That tree basically intrudes into what otherwise would be the contractor's equipment yard. In terms of review considerations, as discussed in the staff report, the application is generally consistent with the city zoning code land use of a contractor's equipment yard, which is permissible within the zoning district with a conditional use permit subject to various special use provisions. In that case, that also includes an 8-foot tall wall or screening around the yard. The property is also found consistent with the general plan and that the proposal is an industrial use consistent with that designation and also consistent with various actions and policies that direct the city to try to use appropriate siting locations for industrial activities that otherwise don't degrade the intent and purpose of the light industrial zoning district. Then in terms of overall compatibility, equipment yards can be somewhat impactful if you have residences or commercial users next to them in terms of noise or truck traffic, visibility, and just kind of general operational impacts. But those are generally limited by virtue of the property's location deep inside the industrial zoning district, and as such, and also subject to conditions of approval of a conditional use permit. So therefore, based on affirmative determinations of the required findings for a conditional use permit, a tree removal permit, a fence exception, which is necessary because of the screening fence that exceeds 6 feet in height, which is the otherwise applicable standard, and the appropriate CEQA exemption determination, staff does recommend that the Plan Commission adopt a resolution approving the conditional use permit and associated tree removal permit to allow the contractor's equipment storage yard on the property. And with that, I will take any questions the commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you for the clear report. I can't go this way for questions, so I have to go to Commissioner Zisser.
Okay. I didn't quite catch all the thing about why this is CUP, but I think it's about the 8-foot fence and maybe, and then the tree removal requirement, right?
Well, the conditional use permit is really focused on the equipment yard. So the use of the property to store vehicles associated with the landscaping business or materials that may be stored back there, mulch, pieces
Yeah.
of trees, other types of landscaping material.
Is that combined with the zoning?
Well, subject to a conditional use permit.
Okay.
So historically, this type of outdoor activity can get a little unwieldy. So the city requires the conditional use permit to kind of provide some bookends around its use.
And the fence height is the same as kind of residential fence height. It's 6 foot. So has anybody thought about, I mean, 8 feet seems reasonable to me in a commercial district like this. And it would seem like maybe our fence requirements in the future could be adjusted to accept something higher in these kinds of light industrial areas.
I mean, that could be a consideration. I mean, here, that's basically what's being asked as part of the conditional use permit
Yeah.
permission for
I
going up to
understand.
8 feet.
We're trying to put less on them in the future, and this seems like, it would make sense in light industrial areas where, whatever's reasonably adjacent at a 7 or 8 foot would be more standard, but I get it. That's the standard right now.
Yeah, the fencing standards are basically citywide across all zoning districts.
Okay. All right, that's all I got.
Commissioner Comcar.
Regarding the public works, civil engineering and impervious analysis that's been done. If you could, oh, wait. Hello. If you can please, talk a little bit about, what is there now, what is going to be. But, oh, yeah, regarding the stormwater treatment. Thank you.
Yes, so good evening, Commissioners. Roger Storrs, Senior Civil Engineer with Public Works Department. So in this instance, as many of you may be aware, the stormwater threshold is 5,000 square feet of new or reconstructed impervious area, triggers stormwater treatment, triggers a bunch of requirements that frankly we'd like to avoid on projects if we can. And in this particular project, there's an opportunity to do that we encourage the contractor or the applicant to use pervious concrete for the parking lot work. So primarily with the use of the pervious concrete, they're able to keep the total reconstructed impervious area under 5,000 square feet. And it's actually not it's not like they're necessarily using nasty chemicals or anything that we need to be concerned about. And the soil out here is actually very good for infiltration. And the groundwater is pretty deep. So generally, if you have your groundwater more than 10 feet deep, the soil strata is assumed to clean out any impurities. So it's kind of a win-win-win for us on this project. We have so many projects now that are triggering stormwater treatment, which require annual inspections. And it's just the list of projects that we have to follow up on year after year after year is getting longer and longer and longer. So any opportunity like this where we can keep a project off that list, we try to do that.
Especially when off-site also gets counted in.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a discussion with the water board coming up in September as part of MRP 4.0 to see what we can do to address that. So,
Thank you very much.
all right, thank you.
That was my own.
Commissioner Hawley.
I got 3. It makes, first one, no barbed wire on the top of the fence, I assume?
No.
No barbed, all right. Second one, chipping trees on site? No.
Perhaps if there are questions for the applicant that can be addressed during public comment.
Sure. Idling vehicles,
Might be,
I can wait.
Okay.
Whatever.
can he ask a question? Just can't vote or? Okay.
Observe. I realize I haven't been here for it. I apologize for my lateness.
No problem. Commissioner Zisser asked my question, so I think that is all of our questions for staff. With that, I'm going to open the item for public comment. We follow the city council's guidance on time. Everyone can speak. The applicant speak for up for 5 minutes. Everybody else can speak for up to 2. The applicant's not required to speak, but he's already gotten up there, so it looks like he wants to. If you could please identify yourself by name, and thank you for joining us here tonight.
Okay.
My name is Jim Moreland. I'm an architect for the project. My client had a conflict for tonight. He's available by phone if there's any questions. He's not available by Zoom because like me, he's kind of untechnical, but it's a pretty simple project. It meets all the requirements of the zoning and public works requirements as far as drainage. I have reviewed the proposed conditions of approval with the owner applicant. He's not owner yet because he's buyer contingent on the approval of the conditional use permit. So he's an applicant, proposed buyer. Gene Ibertowski, he owns a business called Floral Tierra Landscaping. He's been in business for probably 15 years, very reputable. This is the ideal site for him because it's very central to the West Valley, which he serves to do a lot of landscaping maintenance and new landscaping construction. And so we just have reviewed the application and he accepts the conditions of approval. And I'm here to speak for him. I'm authorized agent. And if you have any questions, I know you had a question about the pine tree. If you have any other questions, I can.
No, go ahead.
Happy to answer you.
The pine tree in question that's getting cut down, that, it's not that. It's the, the chipping of cut trees, with the wood chipper. Is that going to be done on site?
No, it's all off-site.
Right answer.
All of their debris is off-site,
Yeah.
moved off-site, so they don't keep any debris on-site.
All right, great. That's what I was hoping you'd say.
Yeah.
And I
They
think
keep their equipment there to go off-site and do their maintenance.
just doing my job.
Thank you.
And I think the answer is no barbed wire on the top of the fence.
No
right?
barbed wire. It's
Yeah, okay.
not actually permitted by the zoning ordinance.
Just doing my job. And third one is, is there a limit to the amount of minutes that a vehicle can idle on the property?
I don't think there's any regulations
that-
about that.
No,
I don't remember
because
seeing
that
anything in
can,
zoning ordinance.
that's an environment.
There's regulations about sound, but I don't think there's any regulations.
Okay,
about that.
because I would offer a suggestion if anything more than 5 minutes becomes an environmental impact over
It-
time.
It has more to do with the sound.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, those are my 3 comments / whatever.
Great.
And could you let them know, thanks for choosing Campbell?
Pardon me?
Let the applicant know that we appreciate them choosing
Oh,
Campbell.
sure.
Okay.
Definitely. Let's move from sound. Say, we're happy to have him here.
Commissioner Comcar, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Zisser?
Nothing.
I don't either. Hey, thank you so much for coming tonight. I will open it up. If any other members of the public would like to speak on this item? Anyone online? All right. Closing public comment. Now we're going to discuss as a commission, starting with Commissioner Zisser.
Yeah. The exception for the higher fence and the removal of the tree, to me, doesn't seem to be a problem. It's in a light industrial area that it's consistent with something like this. So I have no problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any issues with it either. I'm supportive of the project.
Commissioner Allen?
I have nothing to add.
Also supportive, straightforward. Would someone like to make a motion to approve this item?
I'll move.
Do we have a second?
Can I read it?
You can, yes, I'm sorry.
Move to approve a
Just got
conditional use
excited.
permit for contractor's equipment yard for landscape contracting business, including shouldn't be 9 foot, 8 foot, no, 8 foot high screening fence and gates, continued administrative office use of an existing building, and removal of 1 pine tree on property located at 1063 Dell Avenue, PLN 2026-58.
I'll second.
Great. Ken, can we have a roll call vote?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Scissor,
Aye.
Commissioner Camcar,
Aye.
Commissioner Alney,
Aye.
Chair Fields,
Aye. The item passes with a vote of 4-0. Planning Commission item is final unless appealed in writing to the city clerk within 10 calendar days. Congratulations. Have a good night. Thank you. All right. Moving us to item 3, new business housing permit streamlining ad hoc subcommittee. To consider the recommendation of Commissioner Bookbinder and Comcar regarding measures to support housing production in Campbell. Sounds like we should do the report. Director Eastwood, I don't know if you want to comment anything on the email you sent out earlier today on this, or do that in line with the discussion, or?
Do you have that email after the subcommittee's report? I can comment on staff perspective per the commission's wish.
Maybe start with the report and go from there.
Sure, I can give an overview. Given that my laptop is somewhat flaky about doing this, Matt, if you could present.
You're talking about,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be right now. I can give the overview. So one of the things, we've been working on this since the beginning of the year, since January. It's gone through a couple iterations, a couple constraints. Couple things that are important as inputs for context. The city is very heavily fiscally constrained right now, mainly because the Measure K funds are escrowed. So none of these proposals will cost the city anything appreciable. And we are also heavily understaffed, so none of these proposals will cost significant staff time. Also, we have received very vigorous feedback from the public that they would not like the city to add housing via distributing townhomes throughout the single-family neighborhoods. So the city's original housing plan relied heavily on a small number of relatively high-density sites, which would be developed with apartment style or stacked flat housing. This has not happened because of a variety of external factors. And our goal at this point is seeing what we can do to help mitigate those. We are not responsible for macroeconomic trends, which make it harder to do these things. We're not responsible for high interest rates or tariffs or any of that stuff. But the city does have levers to pull. So this is our attempt to find levers for the city to pull and find trade-offs that we consider to be acceptable and make a case for doing so. There are a number, we've received some feedback. Some of that feedback we've incorporated into our recommendations, and some of that feedback we responded to in a little FAQ section at the bottom of the presentation. So I can go over briefly what the three sort of pillars are, and I know
If it helps
Sure.
the commission, sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Stephen Rose is online. He has access to your memo. If it helps the commission, he can present remotely.
Sure, it's just a lot of text, so it may not be terribly engaging, but yes. So the bottom line, by the way, so Chair, you had asked, can you make the impact of this quantitative? And I did my best, but Rob did a much better job and found someone who's willing to use their pro forma to estimate the impact of these things. And my understanding is that currently this type of project is about 300 basis points away from being feasible. And if we do all of these things under a somewhat optimistic set of assumptions, this will make it so that they're 100 basis points away from being feasible. So this would be solving 2/3 of the problem. And again, not costing the city anything in terms of money or staff time, which is what we're trying to go for. So the three pillars are, first, changing the timeline. I believe staff says that at no point have any minor housing development project proposals been appealed. These could still be appealed. They would just be approved by the community development director and not go to planning commission. Again, they could still be appealed. This would just, in the average case, save about 2 months of time. Again, we will not be giving up any discretion. These projects are all, they all use density bonus, which means they are all protected under the Housing Accountability Act, which means that we cannot reduce, condition, or deny them. So We're not giving up any discretion. Second one, redoing our inclusionary zoning policies to be in line with what the city of San Jose has done. They were in pretty much the same position where they had a bunch of apartment projects that were not going forward. They changed their inclusionary zoning rules and the projects went forward. And third, change our park fees. Rather than exempting only small ADUs, we would exempt small ADUs and our small density bonus apartments, like local density bonus apartments. Those are the three portions. They each target a different aspect of what makes it harder or more expensive to build housing here. And I think strictly speaking, so I want to address this straight ahead. The feedback we got from staff is that if we reduce our inclusionary zoning percentages, we will get fewer affordable homes. The thing is, as far as I can tell, this type of project has produced 0 homes in the last 8 years. Some is larger than, if any of these go forward, any proportion of that will be larger than what we've been getting. Same with the parks fees. We have gotten none of these projects. So the amount of parks fees we've collected from this is 0. This would allow us to collect some parks fees, and it would be a strict improvement over what we have now. Matt, would you like to add something? That's the quick overview. I can go into some detail if there are questions.
Thank you. So, thank you for that. So the bottom line is we have tried the way that we've been doing it for so many years. And as Einstein says, if we want to achieve something, we try the same method and it doesn't produce, keep doing it, doesn't make sense. To try something different. So that's what we're saying. Let's try something different, see if it yields results. If it does, then we're in the right track. If it doesn't, we can always go back. But so the analysis that Adam is doing is showing from a developer's point of view, if you don't get enough return on your investment, you won't go through with the project. And the tweaks that he's recommending can put us over that threshold. This is what he's going to be showing. It's going to put us over the threshold where developers say, hey, I can take a chance with this project. There's enough return for me to go to my own investors, get their money, and be able to make this happen. And then looking at it from, I'm an engineer, but looking at it from a non-engineering point of view, we cannot force developers to build affordable homes and sell it at half cost. We cannot force them. It has to be incentive for them to choose to do that, and so let's try something different. Let's see what happens. We're not going to be stuck by it. We can always go back if what we're proposing doesn't work. So that's and then there was also an article that in San Jose Inside digital news today regarding this very same topic of building, what California is doing with its housing mandate. How many homes have California, not just Campbell or Santa Clara County or Northern California, how many, and Campbell is not the only one. They're saying like 6% of the counties and cities that are mandated by the state to reach their goals, only 6% have been able to keep up with their goals. We're almost at a halfway mark in an 8-year cycle. Only 6% have been able to, I guess, approve enough projects where you could say, oh, these guys are in line to meet their goal. That tells you something. That tells you what we're trying to achieve, and the methods we're using to achieve it is not realistic. That's the bottom.
Thank you. So I haven't prepared like exactly how I want to go over this. Do we want to do questions from the commission and public hearing? Fields, what would you like to do?
Rob, why don't you just, I don't know that the public saw your email, right? So why don't you share what you said in the email, then we'll do commissioner questions, then we'll do public comment, then we'll do deliberation.
Sure, and we'll make sure that email gets put in the administrative record so the public has access. So this morning, I had a chance to look through in more detail the recommendations from the ad hoc subcommittee. I do want to make very clear a few clarifications from staff's perspective on this. One is, and we've had several meetings with Matt and Adam on this. So staff is not supportive of all three proposals. I would say staff is supportive of the permit streamlining. And to speak to that, if the commission is supportive of that, I think I'd like to work with our staff on the dividing lines of where council, planning commission are at. There's some technical details, but the overall objective, given there is limited discretion of housing projects going to public hearings of streamlining, staff has observed that too, and would ask the commission if they're recommending that as a policy to go forward, some of the fine details to leave the staff to recommend to the council on where those fine lines are. On the park fees, I would say community development staff is supportive of this. As mentioned, we do have a program that provides a density bonus for small units, number one, so it aligns well with that program. Number two, the state currently does not allow any jurisdiction to charge park fees for an equivalent ADU of the same size. So I think there's an equity provision there that makes sense. And specifically in the stack flat projects, this is a project and a measure that I think would help. Now, holistically, that is community development department staff. I think I've gotten preliminary feedback from our park staff and our public works staff. There's quite a bit of hesitation on a measure that potentially could reduce park impact fees and revenue that are desperately needed, as you've heard from our public works and parks folks. So that's not a unanimous staff position, and that would have to get sorted out if this goes forward between now and the council. On the third, staff does not support a reduction or inclusionary housing requirements, and I've stated as such to Commissioners Kamkar and Buckbinder. Couple of reasons. Number one, to hit our RENA numbers, we do have to produce below market rate units. It's not only market rate units. It's interesting. I looked back at the previous housing cycle. In the previous housing cycle, Campbell only had one tool, was the inclusionary housing ordinance. We didn't have commercial linkage fees. We didn't have a housing program. We didn't try and support affordable housing projects. And if you look at the housing that was actually produced then, when it was much easier to pencil, I'd say 80 to 90% of it was above market rate. So they were produced. You could produce a lot of market rate housing, but there was not a lot of below market rate housing. And what I mean by saying that is we need the tools to meet our RENA to produce below market rate housing, and that is the tool of the inclusionary housing ordinance. What staff would offer as an alternative, we've heard this feedback from some developers, is instead the ability to pay a fee for the difference between the state density bonus, which is traditionally 10%, and the city's 15%. And what that does is two things. One is, I think, providing a deed restricted affordable unit is a much bigger, I'd say, hit to the bottom line of a developer who's building a project over many years versus paying a fee up front. And I think you'd hear that from most developers. Two, our inclusionary housing program needs all the money it can to support our affordable housing projects. I'll say at this point, we have potentially 4 projects in the pipeline to develop 100% affordable projects. None of those projects will pencil likely without any, well, they cannot pencil without any amount of public funding. So that money does not get washed away by feeing out and providing it to Campbell. We can support deeply affordable housing in Campbell to actually meet our RENA. For that reason, and a couple more, happy to provide more details. I do have our housing manager, Eloise, online, and senior planner, Stephen Rose, as technical experts. But for those reasons, staff does not support the third proposal. Happy to, there are some clarifications we've put in the record on the current policy that I hope you can reference on the inclusionary housing ordinance. And with that, I'll stop. And if you have questions, thank you.
Just to be clear, how many inclusionary units have we produced since 2018 in projects of this type?
I want to clarify, projects of this type was,
The type that we're looking at streamlining, over 45 dwelling units an acre, non-townhome, like large apartment projects
since 2018?
since 2018.
Yeah, I started here in 2021. I'll say we have
Since
one entitled project, and we have several in process. I know an applicant's here tonight for one of those. But prior to my being here, perhaps Senior Planner Stephen Rose can weigh in. I'm not aware of others.
Without getting into specifics, very few. I mean, projects of that density included like the St. Anton's Railway Avenue project and the Bay West project at 1677 South Bascom Avenue in the 45.
Are those projects that have actually been built or just entitled?
Both of those were built. So yeah, the mixed use building I'm speaking to on Bascom Avenue, I think its new address is 1725. That's about a 45 unit per acre project. And then the St. Anton's project is the townhome. It was a combination of Lion Homes and St. Anton Communities that built the St. Anton apartment building off of Railway Avenue to south of the light rail station. So
So
those
when were those built? Like, how long has it been since we've had one of those projects?
are the prior arena cycles. That would have been arena 5. So the projects which we have on the books today, we aren't seeing projects of the density 45 units per acre or greater, with the sole exception possibly of the 700 West Hamilton project, which was recently approved, and is it's moving forward, but it's not yet built.
Okay, and so 1725 South Bascom was built in, I think, 2015.
Correct.
Okay, so anything since you've gotten here has been built of that type?
No, I mean, the lay of the land as of late has been lower density projects. It's not just unique to Campbell, but in general, we've been seeing a lot more townhome development and the like. There's been interest, but as we've observed for a lot of macro market economic reasons, those projects haven't been penciling.
Understood. Thank you.
Let's do questions for the subcommittee. Commissioner Zisser, do you want to start, or staff? Do your mic. Yeah, sorry.
I'd rather us not do this like an approval aisle where we just ask certain questions and then we have to come back for comments. I don't know if anybody's else agreeable to it, but I have both questions and comments that are combined. And since this is talking about a proposal, it's not like a regular item. It would seem to me that we should be able to ask questions and make commentary at the same time. But that's my personal take on it.
Okay. When do you think we should do public comment if we were to do?
Well, after we kind of get all our questions and comments out, and then we can take public comments and then come back. And if we have some more things to say, then yeah. But I think I'd like to go last because I have really a lot of things to say about this proposal. And if some others are going to cover them, I can strike some of that off my list.
Okay. All right. Well, there's only 5 of us and 2 of us are on the subcommittee, so why don't you go first? Commissioner Alney.
Nothing to say at this point, really.
No questions?
No.
Okay, couple I guess what is the subcommittee's reaction to staff's recommendation? Because it sounds like if I'm hearing what Director Eastwood is saying, he's comfortable with 1 and 3, however, would like to have staff actually sort of flesh these out as recommendations, pull more data, and then is not comfortable with 2. Is that a fair summary?
Correct.
Okay, so subcommittee, what is your reaction to that? Just because I eventually want to steer us towards some final conclusion here. So why don't we start with that? Where are you guys at that?
Sure. As pointed out, staff's concern is that we will get fewer affordable units. Our current program has produced no affordable units. It could literally not be worse. The results could literally not be worse. The staff is worried that we will get less money for our affordable housing program from these programs. We are currently getting no money. It could not be worse. I think staff is talking about a hypothetical situation in which some of these projects pencil and we can skim as much off the top as we have been. But even with these changes, it's going to be a near thing. And on a broader level, producing market rate housing is not a bad thing. Producing market rate housing is how we don't wind up in a situation like we are now, where the market rate of housing is unaffordable to nearly everyone. There's some sections in there about, does producing market rate housing actually lower the price of housing? There are 6 separate studies in a review article saying that it does. It is one of the most well-supported results in, I guess I would say, urban economics. So I understand that staff is absolutely right. We need subsidized housing and there's no money for it. We need subsidized projects and there's no money for them. But you can't get money out of this. Like, the amount of money we're trying to get out of this is making it so we get no money out of this, so that we get no units out of this.
Just quick follow-up. So, but the question was, staff is recommending taking 1 and 3 to staff and not,
Yeah.
it sounds like you would like to still recommend 2, or?
Yes, we are still recommending 2. Feeing out, we can listen to developers about this, but feeing out still costs the project. It is still expensive for the project. You'll still wind up with a situation where projects are much less likely to pencil. And again, we get no units, we get no money from that.
When you say no money, what are you talking about?
Feeing out, as in they do not just park fees, but the idea of feeing out is that they set aside 10% of the units for below market rate, and they pay an equivalent for the last 5% into our affordable housing fund. But if that doesn't pencil, then we get neither the below market rate units nor the fees into our affordable housing fund.
Did you also want to comment on that one? Yeah, please.
I get that, but if I can, and I don't mean to simplify it, but if there were 5 birds on a tree branch and I shoot one of them, how many remain? Right? The math says 4, but reality is the other guys hear the sound of the gun and they all fly away. So what's the right answer? And here we're saying reality is, if the fee structure we're putting in does not get much bite from developers, we're not bringing in any money, If you're not bringing in any money, then the program is not functioning as it was intended. So let's lower the fee. Let's see if that will get developers to come in, and that's the thing. So, I understand city doesn't want to lose funds especially for parks, which is a huge amenity for, smaller units that just don't have the space that we would like to have, but reality says we got to try something different. And so that's why we want to
Okay.
continue with our.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I do.
go, yeah, please.
It's just a little problem I have with the logic. I understand you're getting nothing now, so what are you really giving up? But there's another side of that coin, and that is the costs to the city can increase because more people are here. And those costs can include the impact to a parks for a park fee that you are never going to get. So, and it could be garbage collection. It could be all kinds of, I don't know what the cost per citizen is living here, but whatever that number is, that's getting added every time more people show up here. So we are increasing costs, even if we're not getting any more money by the presence of more people. To what extent? I'm not saying that's a deal breaker. I'm just saying it's not 0. And that's the comment about what we're giving up.
I can respond to that. So you're absolutely right. As more people come, there's more traffic, more cost, more water usage, more energy usage, all those. But they also pay property taxes. They also pay sales taxes. They also bring in business. They also, if they're a business owner, they hire people, just like our last, item that we heard. So there's a balance to the other side. It's
If
not
it's
just-
the 0, I'm with
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So it's not just cost,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
At some density, the revenue to the city offsets the library and the police department and the fire department costs. And at some density, it does. In San Jose, it used to be 55 units to the acre. You know, back then they said if you make 55 units to the acre, it balances out. You know, but San Jose, but Campbell and San Jose are two different
Yeah.
anymore.
But they make it up with sales tax.
Absolutely.
So, you know,
Absolutely.
if I had the math, I could get behind you if that's gonna pencil.
So I'm still stuck on this in lieu fee thing. You. we're
Can
not-
I answer Commissioner Olney's question first? As I understand it, mainly due to Prop 13, a person moving into a new building will pay significantly more in property tax than the median resident of Campbell. So if anything, it will make our per capita revenue higher, and it will make the city work out a little
But
better.
we get such a small piece of that property tax. I mean, I get the state's loving it, but I'm not convinced the city is, because the last time I checked, I think it was granted, it was like 20 years ago.
Mhm.
It was a net negative per person in Campbell, and it was made up for by sales tax. So I can't believe that the Prop 13 change from 20 years ago is any different than it is now. And
It represents a significant part of our budget, the property taxes. And so it'll only go up when we develop. Maybe it doesn't go up a lot. I think it's 1/10% of the property taxes that comes to Campbell.
yeah, so
And it seems small, but the budget, I think is, the property tax represent 40% or something. It's a significant,
But
property
isn't
tax
that-
and sales taxes are about this. I'm not sure which one's more,
Yeah.
but they're both the two major significant suppliers of revenue to the city. And if we build more new units, then the property taxes will go up, especially since a lot of this stuff is, you know, pre-79 or whatever it was for Prop 13. So there is going to be a net amount. I don't know how much more that's going to be, but I would believe it's some substantial amount
I know.
over
I-
time.
Well, if you're right, then that's your selling point.
I would also mention that our general plan, like this has been brought up as, do we have enough water capacity? Do we have enough sewer capacity? Maybe we don't have enough room for people. And we really did go over that. The city council, as of 2023, got that in the general plan, which really did look at this. Like, can we afford to have more people? Can we provide services? Can we provide infrastructure? And the answer to that was yes.
But that was without reducing the revenue from these construction costs.
None of this. So the parks fees do not go to maintenance. They go to capital projects.
Well, I'm just saying that the analysis you just cited was before you reduce the revenue coming.
That none of that goes to services. That goes to capital projects.
Well, I didn't say it did. I just said that was before you took a reduction. Therefore, it could
That's
be a-
not like general fund money. That is not coming out of anything that goes to pay for regular services.
One- some- moves up into their unit, emptying another unit. And so this chain reaction is like getting revenue several times over with one sale, you know, and so you need. to
Well, it's staff that's saying they don't want to see the money go away, and I'm just trying to figure out the logic behind it. If you guys are saying money's not going away, it's not a problem. Great, I'm with you.
We're talking about two different things. Staff is talking about funds for the affordable housing program. That is specifically money for the city to use to produce permanently affordable below market rate housing. That's completely separate from providing services like police and water and all that to everybody. It's a program that staff would really like to fund. I would like to have it funded, but attempting to fund it through this means it doesn't get funded.
City raised the in-lieu fees because the in-lieu fees were too small, and that the developers were taking that because it was much more beneficial for them to pay low in-lieu fees rather than have a below market rate unit. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. So they raised the in-lieu fee rate to find a balance where a developer has to decide one way or another on in lieu fee. Jim shaking his head. In lieu fee, hopefully he's shaking his head because I'm saying the right thing. That it makes a tougher decision to either build the unit or pay the in lieu fee. Now we're saying we want more in lieu fees. I don't know if we want more in lieu fees. The amount of in lieu fees that Campbell can get to support 100% affordable housing, I don't know if that's meaningful. I mean, I don't know much about that. Because I know that 100% affordable housing is usually nonprofit development, and they have much more trouble with their financing. And they often need help from the cities with land or money, none of which we have. Now, I don't know if we can get enough in lieu fees, and Rob could tell me I'm wrong, but to actually help these I only know two of the projects, the VTA project and the Methodist project. I didn't know there were two others. So I've always been a big proponent of 100% affordable housing because that's the only way that we'll even get close to meeting the requirements. Because we're not going to meet it by just building below market rate, 15% or 10% or whatever it is in the market rate stuff. It just says the math just doesn't work. So you have to have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 big 100% affordable housing projects to make a dent in our numbers. I don't think anybody can argue that point. The problem is that they've been held up for whatever reason. The financing, they can't figure out where to get all the money. VTA stopped the thing on the Winchester thing. I guess Methodist is on hold. I don't know what the other two are. And so to me, I'm confused about what we or the city wants to. I thought the city had decided that the best thing to do was to raise the in lieu fees to make it more balanced so that the developers couldn't just buy themselves out of building below market rate units.
Okay.
Why don't we have?
So if it helps,
Yeah, thank you.
I'll just add a few clarifications. So the term you were looking for, Commissioners, this year is called the point of indifference. And if you'll remember when you reviewed the inclusionary housing, when I was setting a price of an in lieu fee, generally it would be a toss up for a developer to provide a unit versus paying the fee. I think, and of course you have stakeholders here tonight, we've heard from many developers, generally they'll pay the fee because it's a one-time fee versus something that's on the books if it's a rental project for the next 50 years. But that was the point of the fee. Stephen Rose can speak to the historical fee. I believe it was much lower. It wasn't used often. The difference between inclusionary housing on-site and a fee, inclusionary housing, again, is it does make projects harder to pencil. If you're a market rate developer, you have to provide 15% on site. It's harder to your bottom line. The advantage of the city, those units are immediate. They're built with the project and they come out right away. An in lieu fee, typically developers, and you can hear from developers tonight, will pay that fee instead of providing the unit. It provides money into the housing fund we have. We use those monies to support 100% affordable projects. And as I mentioned, we have a few that we're trying to support. The issue is there is a delay, though. I mean, obviously, you have to wait until you have enough money to support a project or a variety of projects. So the money comes into the city, it uses that money to support projects, but versus a unit being produced right away, there's a delay until the affordable housing project is built.
If I can also chime in, my understanding is the 15% number wasn't changed. It used to be 15%, now it's 2%. What they did is instead of applying to 10 or more units, it started applying to 5.
Yeah, we changed it back.
Well, no, it's still you pay affordable percentage on 5 or more units. It's just that you can fee out, you can pay in lieu fee rather than build it.
I think you can fee out the fractional unit. It's stuff like that. The thing that I wanted to.
It's a small part of the things that we're doing here. You're talking about where they build 7 units or 8 units, and they're not going to. They're going to pay the fee on the 1 unit because they don't want to build 1 unit out of 8. Okay, but everything over 10, you know, I've been here 6 years, and we've seen 20 unit, 40 unit, 120 unit, 80 unit, 72 unit. We've seen all these projects, and I can't remember one large project that didn't do the 15%. Maybe somebody could remind me of a large project that hasn't put in 15%. I mean, Jim's done 2 or 3, 4 projects. All these projects that we've seen from Llewellyn to Gilman to the computer technology to 6 or 7 or 8 other ones that are of some consequence that are usually anywhere from 25 to 40 to 100 to 300 are all 15%. So we're getting to 15%. Now, the question I have is, if we didn't have the 15%, to me, the bigger question is, if you reduce it, do more people come? Okay, whether you get more development.
To be clear, we're not reducing the percentages for lower density projects like those townhomes. Exactly. And so like I would not be.
We hardly have any 45-acre ones except for the computer one. And so the idea is, are we going to see 45-acre ones in the future? And I don't know the answer to that.
We have applications for ones, they're just not getting built. Like we have approved those projects, they're just not getting built. I would also like, I think, I realize we're, you know, calling an audible here, but I believe staff can, I believe staff can answer that, but just real quick, I would not be opposed to allowing feeing out the last 5% in lower density projects. If staff thinks that would produce like more funding for the affordable housing, like lower density projects currently pencil, that's, I don't see why we wouldn't do that as well. But the point of the fees being, is it the point of indifference? It's that they cost the project the same as providing the units on site would. And there may be, you know, you have to pay the money up front versus you have to pay the money later, but for a longer time. We try and calibrate them so it is the same hit to the developer. So allowing that switch doesn't really improve matters.
Okay, so time check, we're 40 minutes in, and I feel like we could go around in circles on this. So I want to make sure that we cover each of the 3 items and get to public comment.
I've been spending the better part of the year on this. I could go on.
So, well, I'm not trying to move us immediately. I'm just saying, I'm just being sensitive here.
Comment on the first item.
Go ahead. Yeah, let's go through the first item. Yes.
Multifamily house, go to planning commission with an option to appeal to city council. That doesn't seem true to me anymore. Okay. And the proposed policy is most multifamily proposals go to the community development director as a ministerial.
Not ministerial. That has a specific legal meaning.
Okay. Well, ministerial means that they approve it, never gets to see us. Never gets to
Staff can explain the difference, but ministerial means that it cannot be appealed up to us. That's not what we're doing.
Okay, well, maybe you can explain specifically, but it seems to me what you're saying is already in essentially what we're doing now.
Projects do have to go to planning commission. That involves a 2-month delay.
No, but that's provided, that's for major projects.
So when something is called a minor housing development project, it goes to planning commission. A major housing development project goes to city council.
Right.
A minor housing development project is pretty much anything over 5 units that's not a major housing development project. A major housing development project is over
It's
5 acres or has a certain amount of, or yeah, a certain amount of frontage. So few projects are considered major. Most multifamily projects still go to planning commission. That it adds roughly, according to staff, about a 2-month delay. If it could be approved directly by staff, they wouldn't have to schedule a planning commission meeting, and it would save about 2 months for the developers.
Okay, but let me ask staff. Okay, yeah, we have seen minor projects. Okay, but it's my understanding that in the future, and the only reason we see them is because the developer has voluntarily offered to put it in front of the planning commission, but we have no right to see it. Now, am I wrong about that? When it comes to it's my impression that we in the future, we're not going to see these kinds of projects, and it's just going to be a ministerial approval. Now, am I wrong about that?
No, I mean, based on the size of the project, it would today go to council, planning commission, or be administratively or ministerial approved. I can ask Stephen Rose to walk the commission through what those levels are, but under today's ordinance, you review a certain size of projects.
Stephen, can you clarify this for us?
Yeah, as it stands today, projects less than 5 are administratively approved by the community development director. Projects 5 or greater to technically an unlimited size based on purely unit count is reviewed by the planning commission, appealable to the city council. And then projects on large sites, which are generally described as lots that are over 5 acres, but also there's some other technical types of scenarios that can come up, like when there's 700 feet of linear frontage, or when the lot's over 3 acres in a through lot, or when it's a lot that doesn't have direct frontage onto the public street. Those scenarios, those would go straight to city council, or they would have a council decision. They'd be planning commission recommendation, city council decision. Now, what was also mentioned is there are a number of state laws, including the ones which we're now more familiar with, like SB 9, SB 450, the urban lot split provisions, also, as well as SB 1123 projects. Those are ministerially approved, and those are not subject to appeal. Those are just pretty much, you review them. If the staff reviews them like any other permit, and if we determine it to be meeting all of the requirements, a decision's just made as part of the regular processing of the permit, not subject to an appeal.
Okay, so just to make it clear, anything over 5 still, it's going to come to the planning commission at some point. Is that what
As
you're
of
saying?
present, yes.
And that's not going to change unless we ask to change it?
That's correct. I mean, right now, I would clarify, however, projects up to 10, when they're pursuing a SB 1123 compliance pathway, those are still a ministerial decision and do not go to the planning commission. So we do have a little bit of a disconnect because state law can allow for some project to be ministerially approved up to 10 when pursuing a particular compliance pathway, meaning they're meeting the average unit sizes and other requirements of the law. And the planning commission would not see those projects, even though they're 10-unit projects. Now, if they're not pursuing SB 1123 and they're 5 units or more, those would be at a minimum at the planning commission level.
You're talking about under current policy, not under the proposal.
Correct, under current policy.
And current policy, which is something I've have a problem with, is that when we see, well, let's take the one that we just saw from Jim Garrison on Hamilton and Lee, 72-unit townhouse that came to us. That was not a preliminary review, was it? No. So the developer is not required to have us take a look at it early. It comes to us when we have to vote on it, and we don't get to say, I know we only can do objective, and that's limited. We don't get a chance to give input in advance. It's already been designed, and all the drawings are done and everything, and we're at the end of the process. And that's when we get to see whether it's 20 units or 50 units or 100 units, as long as it's not a major. We're at the end of the process normally, unless the developer voluntarily offers to show us early. Is that correct?
I apologize. The audio is a little bit less optimal on that side of the table. If you could repeat.
Did you get that?
Sounds like no.
I did not catch all of it now, unfortunately. If you could repeat the question again.
Okay, so when we see the over 5 units, that's not a starter home, okay, and ministerial. When we see 20-unit development, Virginia Avenue development, 40-unit development, a Latimer development, a Hamilton Avenue Lee development, or a Llewellyn development, these now come to us, but they come to us at the very end when we have to say, yeah, we recommend approval. And it's only when the developer offers on their own to show it to us early so that we can have some input. Otherwise, we get it at the end of the process. Is that correct?
I would generally characterize when permits come in, the city does send a courtesy notice to neighbors. We do have various means and methods of distributing information that a project is.
Stephen, I'm asking about it coming to the planning commission.
To a formal meeting of the planning commission, you are correct, Commissioner Zisser, that happens at the end, the tail end of the process, when it's already been reviewed by all the departments and divisions, and we've come to a conclusion that the project is ready for public review.
How about SARC? Doesn't SARC, play into this?
So
SARC-
just a reminder I'm hearing, it's very hard to hear you online. Any commissioners that speak, I would advise you get up close to the mic and speak directly into the mic.
Stephen, how about SARC? Doesn't SARC play into this? That's where a portion of the planning commission gets a chance to give input and.
So the city site and architecture review process still applies, but only to commercial projects. So for residential projects, as part of our streamlining efforts, we've largely made it go just straight to commission or to council respectively.
Thank you.
Other questions on the first item? Commissioner Alney.
No questions.
So,
No questions.
thank you. So my only question is to staff. It sounds like staff's recommendation, and maybe just to mix in my perspective on this one, there is some threshold at which an item, like Commissioner Zisser, having gone to a lot of these, there are some buildings where they're quite large. We have lots of public comment. There's some debate. There's smaller complexes that get very few people coming, commenting, sometimes zero. Right now, we are requiring anything above 5, maybe 10 to come to planning. So the proposal would be to potentially change what the threshold is. Staff's recommendation would be that staff would go do some research to define these thresholds, because there's some process that you would take to figure out what they would be, to then determine, okay, great, here's what goes to community development, here's what goes to planning, here's what goes to city council. Is that?
Yeah, that'd be our recommendation. I know that's a bit of an act of faith of the commission.
Sure.
I think the general intent is to acknowledge that many of these projects, there's little discretion if it's a housing project, and B, to streamline. I think I wanted to work with staff more on finding the fine line between those that go to council, plan commission, administrative. Just to Stephen's point, there's already an inequity that certain townhome projects up to 10 units are ministerial approved.
Right.
Yet if it's not a townhome in a certain district, it comes to you. An easy fix would be to say that, any project under 10 units across the board would be an administrative project.
Okay.
But I just think we want to find that right line. There's another argument that if it's a density bonus project, because that even limits more discretion, it should be administratively approved. The only two caveats I'd add, just being a professional in this profession for many years and seeing members of the public who have questions and want to be involved, would be one, that we maintain our noticing of neighbors, so they're involved and they know what's happening. To Commissioner Buckbinder's point, I think we would always encourage our applicants to reach out to the neighborhood and talk to them. And 3, that we maintain our appeal provisions. If for some reason someone is notified, aggrieved of an administrative decision, they do have the right to appeal it up to the Planning Commission and Council.
And could you remind us what the fee is for appeal?
I'm going to leave it on Senior Planner Stephen Rose. I believe we have the lowest fees out of the 15 cities at $300, but he can affirm that.
$300. Okay. So I feel like that's number one. Does anyone else have questions on the first?
Well, I just have one more comment. There's always talk about this delay of 2 months to get to the planning commission. And, I think that has more validity with regards to a business setting up, trying to get in a small storefront or whatever. But when it comes to these developments, which usually are in terms of the architect and construction people designing it, and the whole process that goes on before it ever gets to the planning commission can be a year, 2 years, 2.5, whatever it is. 2 months, to me, is not the issue. Saving 2 months in streamlining is not something of substantial importance when it comes to these projects that ultimately end up taking sometimes 5 or 6 years. And so delaying it 2 months to get to the planning commission, to me, is, I don't know
Okay.
what I want to call
Well,
it. but-
that sounds deliberative. So I would love to get.
I think we can do public comment.
Okay. So that's the first one. I think we've covered the second one. Third one, briefly. Does anyone else have any questions on this before we open public comment? The ADUs.
Well,
Yeah.
I have questions about the way this is presented in terms of inclusionary zoning rates.
Not that one. The ADUs, this is the one about park fees
Park
for
fees.
small scale housing units. The bottom one on the table, the third one. Does
Um,
anyone have questions on that one?
I have a question about the SRO thing. Okay.
Sure.
First of all, do we have I don't even know if we do SROs in this city. Do
We certainly
have-
don't have any.
We don't have any.
No.
Okay. And I'm not clear as to when these would happen. They're not certainly in major developments. Major developments aren't going to put an SRO. They're going to put a studio in. You know, an SRO doesn't have a kitchen or a bathroom. They share it with somebody down the hall. Okay. So it's going to be, you know, like, it's like the SRO hotels in San Francisco. And so I'm not sure how we cover SROs in Campbell.
So
Whether
the-
there's a restriction or what.
The reason that's there is that that is the definition of our local density bonus units, that they have to be 625 square feet or smaller as a studio or one bedroom, or 400 feet or smaller if they're an SRO. We don't have any SROs, but that's just the definition elsewhere in the
That's just
code.
the-
That's what we have for our local density. Basically, it's saying for local density bonus units.
Yeah. And, you know, my take on the exempting, Rob, do we, on the 100% affordable, I know this has been answered before, I probably asked it before, but I forget. On the 100% affordable projects, are we exempting them on park fees?
Projects that qualify, and I'll say generally 100% affordable projects, we exempt half of their park fees.
Half of them. That seems reasonable. So all you're asking to do on this is on ADUs under 750 and small scale housing units under 625 or SROs are exempt from park fees. So you're talking, and is this only on big projects? Is this going to be only on big projects? Like,
I think
like
it
in a
has to
45
be
acre-
you have to have a certain density to use this the small scale local density bonus program in the first place.
That's correct. I'll ask Stephen to confirm.
That's correct. Yeah, the project would have to be at least 45 units per acre and have to meet some other criteria as to average maximum unit size. But that's for the small scale program. I mean, what's on the table here doesn't actually specify that in the table. So I would defer to Commissioner Buckbinder to clarify if it would be your intention to apply this only for projects which are qualifying under the small scale housing unit density bonus program, or just any small unit, irrespective if they're exercising that program.
This is intended specifically for the small scale housing unit program.
And the small scale housing program is what?
And
Go ahead.
I could speak to it in broad strokes. So when we updated the city's density bonus and inclusionary ordinances, and among other things that we'd include in the housing element, we spoke to the broad array of programs the city has implemented to try to help produce more affordable housing. We came up with a program that effectively reduces your inclusionary obligation when you're providing small units. So this is the idea of like affordable by design. So when you have units that are 625 square feet or smaller, then those would qualify you for an additional bonus unit, which would not be subject to the city's inclusionary ordinance. Additionally, we just capture this concept of SROs, but that wasn't, I would say, the primary intent of the program. The idea was just capturing, if you're building half the size as typical, you're getting pretty much twice the units and in half the affordability. And that program has been largely successful, although we haven't seen projects built. We've had a lot of developer interest in it, including with the Cressley project, the Barbano project, and as well as another project at the Creekside Business Park or Business on Bascom Avenue. Intends on using the program as well.
Okay, now I know what you're talking about. And I just want to say that I'm not totally against the idea of reducing or eliminating exempting park fees on these items. My question, though, is whether or not it has any significant impact, whether or not in a typical project where there might be some of these small units, the amount of money that is saved, whether it's going to make a big difference to the developer to pencil out or not. I don't know what the answer to that.
So one of the things
And I will say that the pro forma, I got a real problem with the pro forma example, because I don't think that's, in my opinion, a good example, but I might be wrong.
one of the things I don't know if that Rob shared with me, and I don't know if they were okay with you sending it out, but the conclusion from an actual commercial real estate developer that plugged all this into their own model was that, as I said at the top line, these policies get us from being 300 basis points away from a project penciling to 100 basis points away from a project penciling. I can try and pull the exact breakdown, but they each do a chunk of the work.
But that's based on a certain ratio. I mean, the pro forma shows 100 units of 900 and 100 units of under 600. And I've never seen any.
That's the current type of proposal that the Barbano project is doing. Equal number, I think it's 146 of each.
Who's doing that?
Barbano, the ones at the former Shell station, corner of Campbell and Bascom.
His? So you're 50-50? Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
One other thing I want to add is when you're talking SROs, if the bathrooms and kitchens are the most expensive part of the house to build, so if you don't have to build as many of those, but you can build bedroom, the overall project cost comes down. You sleep more people, of course, they have to share the bathroom, and the kitchen, but bathroom and kitchen are the most expensive part.
Now, I understand what an SRO is and I understand what you save. I've just never seen an SRO in the city. Okay.
But just answering the question you asked, does it make sense? It does. It is cheaper.
Any other questions on this item? Commissioner Alney, any?
Yeah, one comment.
Yeah, please.
If the 2-month thing is really an impact, I'd be willing to propose we meet more often to take the edge off of that.
But it's not just the time, it's also the money they have to spend to come here and present.
Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah.
for what it's worth.
Yeah. Okay. I would like to take us to public comment because we can still deliberate plenty after that. So with that, do we have speaker cards or how are we doing this?
I do have a couple people that approached me. If you want to go, Susan, and then afterwards, the young lady at the back, and then we'll move forward.
Speakers have up to 2 minutes. Please identify yourself as you start.
Okay, before I start, I want to ask that Adam Bookbinder recuse himself further from this conversation. He has made numerous biased statements to me and to others. He aggressively approached me after a meeting a few months ago, telling me, we must get rid of the park fees. We must do this. And now he's sitting here doing the same thing. I don't think it's fair. I don't think he's objectable. And he's already stated, when I approached him at a meeting after that Rob and Matt were at and a friend Roy was at, he admitted that he should not have said that and he apologized. Well, it's too late. He did say it. He is biased and he's, to me, doing it again tonight. And he has expressed this on numerous occasions and I think he needs to recuse himself further from this conversation.
Thank you.
That's not my 2-minute speech. That's my prelude to my 2 minutes.
Okay, well, you still have your timer going, so go
Okay.
ahead.
express bias. He was aggressively approaching me, and I don't appreciate what he did. And I don't think it's fair that he continues to be part of this conversation. Okay, now I'm going to say my part about it. I do not agree getting rid of any Park Blue fees. The report to me is very one-sided. You take cities like Germany and Los Angeles and Seattle, that has nothing to do with Campbell. It's not even close to our size. It looks like you've thrown everything at the wall to see what sticks. There's blanket statements. There will be no increase to utilities. Well, SB 79 was not part of the housing element. SB 79 is almost going to double our population. There was no assessment of the utilities by anybody saying that that would not be a problem. And then under the park and lieu fees, no way get rid of them. We're looking at a $15 to $18 million pool project. We've got $30 million potential other things to do here at the community center. And the example says, oh, well, you know, it would be 4.6, but now we're down to 2.3 million. Well, there's no discussion in there what the hit is to the city. It just says that. It's like, okay, well, what impact is that? There's no analysis that says what that does to our budget. And you've already heard from Rob, most of the staff doesn't support this idea. So leave the in lieu fees alone. And you guys can argue about the 2 month. I think that's crazy in the grant. I'm working on projects right now that are 4 or 5 years. And no, this is your one chance for the public to make a comment. Having it be 1 month or 2 months, to me, is important to have the public make that comment. And I appreciate you having a meeting more often, but don't get rid of in lieu fees. Don't get rid of the inclusionary. Don't change that. And Adam needs to recuse himself.
Thank you.
Can I just get an opinion from the city attorney here?
Sure.
As to whether or not you need to recuse yourself?
Yes, please. Do you have any questions about what she brought up?
Do you have any questions for her?
No, for me.
Oh, for you. So you would need to recuse yourself if you had a financial conflict of interest in any of these decisions, if you lived within a certain radius of any project, which there's no specific project between before us right now. It's citywide concern. So no, this is not a situation. I have not seen a situation where you need to recuse yourself at this point.
Thank you. And to be clear, my only financial stake in this is that if housing becomes more affordable in Campbell, the value of my home will go down. That is the limit of my financial stake in this. So I will not be recusing myself. Thank you. You've had your comment.
It would be my recommendation that we stick to public comments and move on to the next.
Can I comment?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Adam and I have been on the planning commission for exactly the same amount of time. We've been on the planning commission exactly 6 years. We don't always agree, okay, but we've always been cordial. And I've actually expressed to him both during the meetings and actually outside the meetings some of my differences. And I respect Susan and I know her, but bias. Everybody has bias. There is nobody who is totally objective. Everybody, whether it's a politician or whether it's a volunteer on the commission, or whether it's a person just on the street, everybody has a bias. I lean less. I'm an affordable housing advocate, but I'm not as extreme. Not sure I use the word. I'm not as strong an advocate for stronger measures as Adam is. However, I think he has a right to have those positions and to express them. Doesn't mean we have to accept them. Now, what he did in terms of being impolite or whatever off the commission, that's to me a separate issue. I don't think it deserves him being recused. There might be something that in a complaint to the city, something could be done. But to me, he has a right to take a position of his orientation. I mean, clearly, I think most of the commissioners on this who have been here for a while recognize Adam's position on housing. And that is, he has the strongest advocacy in favor of building housing. No, he has a strong advocacy of building both affordable and market rate housing. And I'm more tendency to look at affordable housing. But what I'm saying is that everybody has bias. People have biases, you know, in this that, you know, I'm not so sure here, but would not support housing. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a problem. I don't think bias is a problem. Everybody has a bias. It's just a matter of hearing out people and then making your own decision based on the facts that we get. And I think we have, everybody on this commission is an independent thinker, and has a right to express their bias, their position on a particular issue. So I'm sorry if something happened between Susan and Adam, but that's not, I don't think that applies to whether or not he should be recused from the commission. That's all I have to
Okay,
say.
thank you. Do you have anything to add?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's keep it tight because again, I would like to get to actual public comment on the issue we're talking about tonight.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bookbinder, I know the word bias is being thrown around, but I believe a better word is opinion. And I believe you came to your opinions the way you came to your opinions. And I respect them. I may not agree with them, but I don't think you deserve that. And I wanted you to hear that for the record.
Thank you. If anyone wants to see how I came to my opinions, there's footnotes. Please
Chair, I
continue.
need 30 seconds.
Okay, Commissioner Comcar, and then we're really going to public comment.
So I see our role as dual role. We put our hat and we judge things. We cannot be biased during those types of decisions. But then we take our hat and we become advisors to the city council, and advisors city, we can absolutely have an opinion and have a bias because that's our role. That's the responsibility we've been given, is advise us. How do you think we should manage the city? So I agree with both of my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and now
Thank you, sir.
the next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jim Sullivan. I'm a 22-year resident of Campbell. And some of you recognize me from having two projects, actually 3 projects approved here in the city with another one kind of coming up, all essentially for sale townhome projects. The market is strong for those right now. And I want to point out that I think it was 4 or 5 years ago when we started Llewellyn Avenue. You know, I think at the time, the highest density in Campbell on your books, you know, I know that there was some stuff that was built beforehand, was like 27 units per acre. So when you did this last round of the housing element, in order to get all of the housing units that you wanted to, you had to start, you know, plugging in 45 units, 60 units, you know, upwards of 80 units. Campbell wasn't really known for that in the past, right? San Jose was, you know, other cities were. Milpitas, I did some, you know, super high density stuff there by the BART station. And I love Campbell. Campbell's a great place to live. And I think eventually it will catch on. I really do. But I have to tell you, even in those other cities, 2 projects that I have, one in Milpitas, approved for 350 odd apartment units. We downzoned it to 108 townhomes, right? Because the 350 apartment units weren't going to be built. Out right by Valley Fair or whatever, Westfield, you know, the AgriHood project, 160 apartment units, all market rate, by the way. We're downzoning it to 44 townhomes. That's what can be built right now. So it's very difficult. So if you want to promote that, I think I commend Commissioner Bookbinder and Kamkar spending all this time looking at it. How can we make this happen, even if it's on a temporary basis, kind of, you know, kick the wheels loose. But I'm really kind of excited about Rob and his team working with the nonprofit builders. That's how you're going to get your RHNA numbers for the low income and very low income units. And how you do that is the city has to have money. And I was a big proponent when you guys were revising your affordable. Am I past my time?
1 more minute.
Okay, thank you. Your affordable housing ordinance.
So you're not allowed to fee out of your affordable housing ordinance the way things stand and the way things previously were. I think it happened one time with somebody who built like 7 units or 8 units and he paid a fractional amount and it was super low. So you change that amount. You can now fee out a fractional unit. So if it's 0.5 or less, you pay a fee. And then if it's above 0.5, you round up to the next unit, which is ridiculous. You should just have a fractional fee for anything in between. Furthermore, if you said, we allow you to do, every developer, all 4 of my projects, I would provide 10% on site because that gets me the density bonus and that's important. But I would have feed out of the other 5%, even though it's a commiserate or the same amount. And I just counted it up. So the Llewellyn project, 17 units affordable, 6 of the units I could have feed out of. That would have, and then the Virginia Avenue project, 6 units affordable, 2 of the units I could have feed out of. That would have been $6.4 million in the city's projects. My other 2 projects, Hamilton Avenue, and I have another one on Campbell Avenue, 5 units would generate $4 million in revenue. So those 4 projects, townhome projects, Rob would be sitting with $10.4 million in his hand, and you could do a lot of help. With basically 13 units or 8 plus 5, 13 units not being built, but having $10.4 million.
Thank you. I imagine people will have questions for you. So Commissioner Comcar.
Thank you. So would you have been okay with paying that fee up front?
The fee is typically, nobody wants to pay it like when the final map is approved, but it's typically built into either prior to the first certificate of occupancy. So, it's going to be a guaranteed fee. The project's not going to get built, without the fee being paid.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So you would have been okay with having to pay that fee before the first certificate of occupancy gets issued to you?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I just want to be clear on this. You're saying that we only allow the fractional, but we don't allow you to pay it out in lieu of the 15% to get down to 10% right now. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. I could request something and it would take a development agreement, would basically go through the city
So
attorney.
if we
I
were to
propose.
consider redoing that so that it's still 15%, but you could pay in lieu fees, get it to 10%, that would be what you're suggesting. Is that correct?
Yeah. So right now, if I do, a certain number of units and my amount is, the number of units that requires to be built is like 6.4 units on site. Your current fee says that 0.4 can be paid in lieu fee, or the developer can add an extra unit, which no developer would. They would pay the 0.4. Most cities allow you any fractional interest, right? So if it's 0.8, right? If my requirement is 6.8, units, get the fee, get the 0.8 all in fees. The developer still can, do an extra unit, but every developer is going to pay 80% rather than providing another unit. And it puts money into the city's hands, which Rob and his staff can then, relay into actual units being built by some of these 100%.
You're talking about, weren't you talking about the monies that would have come in if you could have just done 10%?
Yes.
And paid for the additional ones.
Yeah.
In lieu of. So that becomes a big number.
Yes, that's the bigger number, not the
Okay.
fractional.
Are other cities allowing this kind of thing? They go from 15 to 10 and paying the in lieu?
Every planning director that I talk to, and I propose that to, they say, that's a great idea. And you should talk to our council about it, or, development agreement.
All right.
Campbell could be the first. The other cities do allow you to fee out with council approval, because they want the money. But developers nowadays, at least, for the projects that I'm doing, want to do at least 10% on site to get the density bonus protection.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah. And then I'm just sorry, just one more thing, just to touch base on. is right now the affordable housing ordinance that you guys have is for a for sale project is 9% moderate and 6% low. And for a rental, it's low and very low. I think similar percentages. You're the only city that does that in my, with my knowledge. Most cities, just say if it's for sale, it's, 15% moderate. If it's rental, 15% low. And the few cities that break it down, no, we want some moderate and low, do 10% moderate and 5% low, because I need to do 10% of one category in order to get the density bonus. So even though I'm doing 9% moderate and 6% low on all of my sites, the city says, yeah, you don't get density bonus. Give me 10% in one of the categories, which is really doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Okay. Go ahead. One more question. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The person in the back and then thank you.
Thank you. If you could please identify yourself. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Paul. I'm with Alpha X. We're a local developer committed to bringing achievable quality home ownership option to family in the Bay Area. I know it's a very heated topic today, and I want to stand here tonight to support the subcommittee housing streamline recommendations. I know we have a lot of discussion on different items, but we want to show our supports because we all know Campbell needs housing, especially multifamily homes in the central area. But in reality, on ground, when we run our pro forma, it is very hard with the high interest rate, soaring construction costs that are stalling projects that we are ready to go. This proposal gives the city 3 practical tools that we think to help this stall project moving ahead without causing taxpayer and other costs. First, the administrative approval that we talked about, the code compliance project saves 2 months on carrying costs, which save us hundreds of thousands of dollars. While the whole project is suggested, still keeping the neighbors in the loop, which we think is very reasonable. The right sizing inclusionary zoning for the stack flat matters because unrealistic requiring for the number on papers doesn't make the project works. If we cannot finance it, then 0 building is being built. Market rate or affordable. So adjusting this rate, we think it can help the financing doable and we can actually get the shovels in the ground. Also, we talk about the park fee exemption for micro units. We think it's good for smaller homes that we can treat them as the same way as the ADU. So it can encourage the entry level and naturally the affordable options. Alpha X, we want to build the homes to our local workers that they need. So we really like to see all the discussion tonight and hopefully this will move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Thanks for coming tonight.
Hello, my name is Missy Brenner. I'd like to talk about the park fees, and I have 4 points. First, we've talked about the ADUs that are exempt from park fees, but in general, ADUs are on a property that has some sort of outdoor space, if only a shared outdoor space with the main dwelling on the property. I don't actually think it's a comparable situation to a stacked flat or other denser building project where you're in a hallway and you may or may not have outdoor space to be as part of that project. I'm sure it's wildly expensive for developers to include rooftop park areas or playgrounds or other things like that, and they're constrained obviously by the site that they're working with. So one thing that concerned me to this evening is comparability to the ADU provision is really the only justification we've heard tonight or seen in the report for exempting micro units from the park fees. And I don't think it is a strong justification. Second, the report has about 5 sentences on park fees. I may have miscounted. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's page 2. There's a couple describing the proposal. There's a couple that span pages 3 and 4 of the report. And then there's the line item in the pro forma. Again, the ADU rationale is the only one presented. I'm concerned that exempting park fees is being swept up into some of these other measures without having received quite as much diligence as some of these other measures have. There's no footnotes for those sections. It's not clear to me that other cities have tried to implement this and had success, or that it's really moving the needle in a substantial way. Third, looking at the pro forma, it mentioned, 200 units, half of which are 600 square feet, micro units, half of which are 900. I asked Google, sue me, that what is, around the average cost of selling a 600 square foot unit. It thought it was $500,000. I don't know if that's true, but if we call it 400,000 for all those 200 units, even though only half of them are micro units, that would be $80 million. The pro forma reported $58 million in hard costs, which I'm assuming does not include fees. That would be a $22 million margin. If the park fees are reduced by, I think it said it would save $2.3 million with the exemption. $2.3 million to the city is a sixth of the cost of the estimated pool replacement. It's not a sixth of that margin. And I think that even when you look conservatively at each step of the math as presented in this pro forma, which has a number of assumptions, that money is more impactful for the city. And if I understood the developers that I appreciate coming here to speak to us today, it wasn't clear to me either that the park fees are really what is preventing development from going forward. It sounded like from Mr. Sullivan that the projects that are capable of getting built are larger than, was that my time?
Yeah.
One more sentence?
One more sentence.
Larger than the ones that the park fees would be helping. So I would just ask to please look more carefully at this. People in small spaces need outdoor space, and Campbell punches way above its weight with our parks. I think we can do better for people. Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
question.
Go ahead. Yeah, there's a question for you.
Sorry.
No problem. No problem.
So I noticed that you have been here for most of the proceedings, and we spoke about in the report that with the current requirements, units are not getting built. If units are not built, we're not getting the park fee. So we can set the percentage at whatever we want. If we're not getting the units built, then it's not working. We, just like you, are advocates of getting more parks and more other activity, and and so what we're, I guess, recommending is to change the formula so we can get some park fees. Do you have any opinion as to maybe lowering the fee per unit, or lowering the requirements on which units get to pay would produce more money, maybe not from each unit, but from overall, do you have any opinion on that, or, and you don't have to, it's just a question.
No, I think two things in response to that. First, I think it could be reasonable to look at a reduction, but I think we don't have that information in front of us. I personally would oppose a reduction, but I could understand if the city wanted to look at that. What I haven't seen is data showing how much that has helped in comparable cities, whether we're currently charging more in park fees than other cities. That kind of information that we do have available for some of the other proposals we've heard this evening. And that is what gives me cause for concern. Before I say my second thing, I see a finger.
Yes, if I may.
Please.
So I believe in the pro forma that we got from the commercial real estate folks, the impact of right sizing our inclusionary zoning policies was about equivalent to the impact of reducing our park fees. That all of the policies together move about 200 basis points out of 300. And I can try and get you the exact numbers. They didn't consent for that to be shared because it involved internal models, but that's roughly what the impact is.
I understand, although black box math just generally, I understand consent and confidentiality. It gives
I tried to put together a pro forma myself. I ran into a lot of this stuff as confidential. It was like I wound up doing a lot of assumptions, and I figured having professionals do it was probably better, but this is a lot of black box stuff. Yeah.
It seems surprising to me that the park fees would have a commensurate impact with the inclusionary zoning. I know a lot less about inclusionary zoning, so I don't really want to speak too much to that, but I did think it was interesting that we didn't hear about the park fees as a very prominent concern, or with other justifications this evening than it being conceptually comparable to the ADUs. The only other point I wanted to make is just if I am a caterer and I can feed 50 people, I loved your bird example and it made me think of this. If I can feed 50 people and I don't have a project going, I would still be very hesitant and careful before I take a project for 100 people. And I think if we welcome more people into the city, we should be absolutely prepared that they're going to want to use our parks and services to the same full extent that the rest of us do. And so the something over nothing, I understand, but I'm just not sure it works in this context. And thank you very much for listening to me.
No, thank you for speaking tonight.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker.
And Chair, after the folks in the public speak, we do have one person online.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, my name is John Pringle. I'm here representing the Barbano project. I've been before you numerous times. I've been speaking at hearings for 5 years about park fees here. They are a significant issue. But overall, I want to go a couple things. Number one, we pay about $9,000 a year property taxes on these two sites. We'll be paying $2 million a year, of which $200,000 a year will go to the city. Just to add to that, if our average household income is going to be, I don't know, $150,000 a year, and I guarantee you $25,000 of that's going to be spent by our renters here in the city of Campbell. And that's going to generate a minimum of another $1 million a year of sales tax. Now, I'm sorry we're not getting sales tax today because of this terrible lawsuit, but the day will come. Fire protection, we are putting in state-of-the-art fire. I don't think that's going to be anything. Police protection, we need it. We're spending $2 million on swimming pools, spas, fitness centers, and 13,000 feet of common area lounge space for our residents. We're contributing to their amenity load. The problem is very well articulated by the study done for this group 3 years ago, City of San Francisco. We are absolutely a couple hundred basis points off of feasibility. I appreciate the change in direction here. I'm not sure we're prepared to do a 15% affordable rate on our non-small units. Right now, just so you know, the discount would be $2,400 a month per unit for eternity. So that equates to about a $6.5 million reduction in value of the project upon completion. So we pay that off. Then you throw in park fees of another $6 million. So that's $12 million. So park fees, I'm penciling out for park fees on our traditional size units, not on the small units. The small units, we're giving a huge discount and compromising the project to build smaller units than we want to make. but we're headed in the right direction. I have the largest debt and equity firm, probably the third largest in the United States, working on our project, trying to figure out how we build a $180 million project. I'm telling you, it's extremely difficult. And best case I see, we're about 150 basis points off right now.
Pennsylvania.
Sorry, is that under current policy or with the proposed changes?
That's with the proposed changes.
And how far off were you without the proposed changes?
We're not going to mess with it. We're not going to build it. So
Sorry, do you mean that
4 or
you're
5%? I mean, we'll be at a, we're not going to hit we might hit, that 10.5, 11% IRR with under the old policy. But I've adjusted, I've assumed with the new policy, 15% split between 50% AMI and 80% AMI. And that's good. Now I see from staff going back to this is a new number for me that I have to run, but it's 7% inclusionary zoning at 50% AMI. I've got to rerun those numbers.
Well, that's the proposal.
Yeah, sorry, to be clear, when you say 100, so you say with this proposal, it still does not pencil, but it's closer?
It's closer. It's definitely closer. And obviously, we're expecting rents to keep going up. And what's going to happen is if it doesn't work, you're just not. I don't know anybody else that wants to do this. I'm not in a silo. I'm looking at deals that have happened in Sunnyvale, Mountain View, San Francisco, San Mateo. As Mr. Sullivan said, this is, the smart person just puts for sale in on this site. Goes back to a townhome project. It's much more lucrative. But I will say as a final point, I'm interested in negotiating an in lieu fee because instead of a $6 million hit to our value, I can probably justify $3 to $4 million in lieu fee. So you add that to Mr. Sullivan's projects and you guys have real money to play with. This is what San Jose's done. This is what Pleasanton's done. I negotiated in lieu fee for 350 units in Pleasanton and it worked for all parties.
Right.
So how many units are you, it's up to 250 or something like that.
323.
Oh, it's 323 now.
Yeah.
Because you added the extra place for where the hotel is.
Right.
So it's 323 and you're saying that that's divided equally between small size and regular size?
Right. So we created, originally we came in, we had a hotel site. In that building, we changed our architecture. We've added smaller units. For simplicity's sake, we put them on that side where it is. And it'll be one phase. It's going to be one phase.
Right.
We upgraded our amenity load to, as I said, pretty close to 15,000 feet of amenity space for our residents.
So 15% is, you're like 45, 48 or 50 below market rate units?
I'm at 15% of 50% of that. I'm at 20.
All right, because we've got the
22 or 23.
the local density.
22 or 23 units.
22 or 23 units.
Right.
Okay, and how many are moderate versus low or whatever it is?
I've run them in different methods, but my latest iteration was half at 50% of it AMI and the half at 80% of AMI. 15% of AMI is a $2,500 a month reduction in market rents for eternity. And this is what lenders don't like. Right.
But I'm not clear on the the affordable ranges are a range, so it's 50 to 80 and 80 to 120. And so when they determine a rent, I'm under the impression they determine rent based on the person that's going in there and what their household income.
Yeah, but you take an average.
You take an average,
You
right?
take, yeah. And
So the 50 is really not 50, it's really, it's really 65.
Your team gives you a schedule. We have a
Yeah,
schedule
yeah,
by
I-
household side, and
I understand.
we assume, 2 people or 1.5 people per 1 bedroom, one
Right.
person per studio, 3
So
or
you
4.
average out the range.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It comes out pretty.
Now, if instead of say, so you're saying that you get closer if on the small units, the park fees are exempted. You're saying you get
And I've taken park fees out.
out.
And I've told Rob, it's not going to get built with park fees on those units. We're not going to do it. The owner had said that pretty clearly.
So even if we gave you a discount,
No,
it's
We're
gonna
not-
be zero.
yeah.
And
I mean,
sorry,
it's-
on the,
you know what? I'm not the capital markets, guys.
I'm just.
This is so
asking,
much
John.
harder. I started managing property in Campbell in 1987 for Prometheus Development Company. I went on to join Avalon Bay Apartment Communities we built here in Campbell. I bet, it was never this hard as it is today.
Yeah.
Never. And I negotiated an in lieu fee for a project I own in downtown San Jose. And this, then I find out that 20 projects got waived, all inclusionary requirements. Rob didn't report on that because that's old news. And I believe they all got waived park fees. And I couldn't look it up while we're sitting here. But it's either get apartments built or not, unfortunately, along the lines Mr. Bookwalter said. But, we're trying to do this.
So do you do, I assume you do various machinations on the size of the units and the number, so, if you're 50-50 on 900 and 600, I assume you also looked at a different ratio for bigger ones and not so many smaller ones to see if there's a better matchup.
We'd rather build larger square foot
Right,
apartments.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because they're more popular.
Well, and they'll pay more.
But so what we did is we went back and redesigned and crammed down. We came up with a plan for 300 and some odd units. And then when the issue came up on small units, which I thought was an interesting idea, we went back and changed half the project because I didn't think this will work if we don't do this.
Question. You said that like with the proposal, you were looking at 15% an inclusionary rate. The proposal is for a 10% inclusionary rate, which if you do half small units,
Yeah,
an effective
and
5%.
Your point is correct. I need to run those numbers, and I haven't run it. In fact, this little addendum is first time I saw it was right before this meeting.
Okay. If you're just gonna like throw it against the wall, how much closer to penciling out does that get you?
Not sure. I don't want to throw it against the wall.
That's fair.
In a public hearing.
Good idea.
I'm worried about my fees overall from the city. I have all the other fees. I've assumed they're going to pay park fees in my underwriting for the standard size units. So I've left that alone. I know the city wants park fees, but I also know I don't think we're going to impact that, but I've left it in there. I'm trying to find other things that'll move, which would be construction taxes and certainly the inclusionary housing ordinance is the biggest negative. And just what San Francisco found, just what they published, it's the reason units are not being built.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
couple more questions.
Okay, so the 15%, 10%. Mr. Sullivan's opinion was if he had to pay 15%, he would rather do 10% of the units on site and then fee out for the extra 5%. What is your?
No, I'd rather fee out for the whole thing.
But if you don't have that choice, let's say you either build 15%.
Well, I'm going to do what's most favorable for our underlying economics to raise the capital we have to raise. We have to raise another, 60 million in equity that we want to stay in this project for 20 years. So a $180 million project, our ownership wants to stay in the project through the next generation. But this is not a build and sell for my owners, which is highly unusual.
Yeah.
This is a build and hold.
Yeah.
So we're looking for 60 million of real cash.
Okay. So you might end up building the 15% if that was the requirement, rather than fee out of the 5%.
If I did a mixed bag, I might do a mixed bag. Yeah. Of in lieu fee and other.
Okay.
I think, to be honest with you, for you guys, figure out in lieu fees, it's the best attractor for affordable housing developers.
Yeah.
San Jose's doing it. I had a project under contract. City offered them $8 million for 150 units. The city of San Jose. Now, Rob has explained to you, they have a lot more money because of other taxes, but affordable guys, it's a very complex business. I don't know anything about it. Maybe Jim does, but they layer on tax credits, they layer on subsidized bond financing, and they get really close. And cities close the gap by writing the check. And I see you being very attractive. Then you get 100% affordable projects.
Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Olney, a question?
Thanks for coming down.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate your presence every time. Wait, I got one for you.
Oh, he has a question too. Not
Oh,
just-
it's good news.
Okay.
So if I could, and I did, offer you in lieu, in exchange for public access to your gyms and pools, would you do it?
No, because I'm putting extra parking in over and above required for our residents. And I don't think I want non-residents. We'll probably have 450 people living there. I assume 323 households. That's my 25,000 household number, but we're going to have 400 and some odd people there.
Yeah, I get that it's a negative, but if I said no parking requirements for the public, but just simply.
I wouldn't do that. It's secure. We're security oriented. We're going underground, very expensive. People can walk across to the prune yard, walk down to Whole Foods, walk to downtown.
Yeah.
I'm just
trying to sell.
If you ask me, would I put memberships open to the public? Maybe. Yeah. Memberships. Yeah.
Like a certain number and.
They pay a fee. Yeah. A reasonable fee.
And then you wouldn't mind.
I've done that before.
There you go. So it kind of does work.
It didn't work well but I've done that.
Yeah. Okay. That's it.
That's
Okay. We good?
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more speaker and then our person online as well. If you could identify yourself.
Good evening, commission, staff. Thanks for being here and being late with us. Sorry to Chris online. I'm stealing his thunder a little bit. My name is Joe Brenner. I'm a Campbell resident. I grew up here. I'm also a business owner here. One thing I'd really like to caution us from doing is looking at this as an all or nothing proposition. It's very clear from the developers here that the in lieu fees and the inclusionary zoning, there's some real kind of meat to be had there. Campbell's not always got a great reputation as to how friendly it is for businesses working in the city. I think this is a really good opportunity to improve those relationships, improve that reputation, and really get some meaningful traction on getting housing built, whether it's affordable or not. I'm a big proponent of housing. I built houses with my dad as a kid. I built houses with the Habitat for Humanity project. I'm really big on making sure that everybody has a place to live because that's a cornerstone of any society. I would caution us to not jump into abandoning the parks fees because, ladies and gentlemen, we're 200 feet from the closed pool project, and Campbell's got a revenue problem. I don't think we should hamstring ourselves in unnecessary ways in terms of us being able to generate revenue for projects that the public really cares about. You see it on social media. People are upset about the pool being closed. Community outreach meetings are well attended. And as has been demonstrated, pools being built for private usage does not translate to public usage. We have at-risk individuals in Campbell. We have seniors. We have families here already that made great use of the pool, and they can't now. Getting in the way of that, I think, would be a grave misstep. I think we should start with the in lieu fees, the inclusionary zoning. Maybe we look at kind of streamlining the process for particularly anything that's going to be ministerially zoned for the first proposal. But park fees, I'd really like to see if we could get away from that at first. If that doesn't work and it doesn't get housing built, maybe we have to revisit. But for now, I'd really like to see us keep our park fees intact. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and last but not least, I see we have Chris Lindsay on the Zoom.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, welcome.
Hi, this is Chris Lindsay, Campbell resident, homeowner, former renter. And I went through the whole proposal that was posted on the city website. Just gotta say I'm in favor of all three proposals that are written up. I think they do take a step in the right direction towards making housing more, I guess, able to be built in Campbell, which we sorely need. I think following up a couple points specific to like the streamlining, the first proposal. I know there's some skepticism about the does 2 months really make a difference, but I think you heard multiple voices from developers saying that it really does matter, just in terms of one, time is money, as well as just availability over and just uncertainty in capital markets don't like uncertainty or delays as well. So I do think that does have a material impact. And the second proposal with inclusionary zoning, I think just it sounds like from the developers that we've heard from, like developing is quite an elastic, like price sensitive market, and anything we can do to lower that cost will help bring in, basically develop more housing. I think that's important. And while it sounded like maybe it was concerned there was sort of like a zero sum game, that if we reduce the inclusionary zone requirement, that would lead to fewer affordable housing. But I think the argument there is instead that by lowering the cost, we can increase the amount of development being made, and that will then hence yield more projects that'll yield more inclusionary or more below market rate housing. And also just, I think this also noted in the report that just housing supply in general does, just of any type, goes a long ways towards providing affordable housing across all income bands. And so, even if it's not quite, marked as inclusionary zoning or deed restricted, just by having more housing allows people to live in the places that they can actually afford. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there is no other humans to speak in the chamber, so I will close public comment. Since I think we might take a minute to deliberate on this, I would propose we take a 3-minute bio break and then reconvene. Sound good? All right. Come back at 9:12.
Exceed your market rate unit
Folks, want to reconvene?
by double.
Have a good night. Hey, thanks so much. Thank you.
I'll see you guys in a couple of months.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. Reconvening the meeting, 9:13 PM. So we have this item and I think we should decide what our next step is. I have a straw man proposal, but I'm also not on the subcommittee. So if the subcommittee wants to react to all the discussion, and do you want to change anything about your original recommendation to recommend all three items based on the discussion?
So I'll check to see if Matt's okay with this, and I also have a proposal for how we proceed with this. I would like to propose, in addition to what's on the page, propose allowing developers of smaller projects to fee out the last 5%. Sounds like the city really needs the cash, and like that would be a better balance both for the developers and for the city. So smaller townhome size projects, which have the 15% inclusionary rate, would do 10% on site and have the option to fee out the last 5%. That would be an addition. The proposal I would have for how to do this is we have like a limited amount of discussion, then do like a show of hands rate vote on each of the, I guess at this point, 4 proposals. And that's what gets pushed to city council.
Makes sense to me.
I have a different proposal than
If you'd
that.
like to do it differently, by all means.
Okay. So I think where I'm at is, and this is my own opinion, that everyone should have their own opinions. I think the feedback I've given the whole time is I want to make sure that I understand the impact of whatever we're signing ourselves up for. So I'm not comfortable with these going directly to council. I'm comfortable with them first going to staff to then flesh out, like as an example on the first one, I could be supportive of the first one depending on the thresholds, but prior to sending anything to council, I would want to see what is the threshold, how many projects have we gotten like that, what was the comment like? Because I can't like generically pass that on without that. And so that's what I would do on the first one. On inclusionary housing based on staff's recommendation and the public comment we've heard, I would love staff to further flesh out the in lieu fee proposal. Again, is something that we could discuss at some future meeting as a proposal. And then on park fees, I want to know like netting out, like what are we saying here? Because I think, and Missy Brenner spoke on this, like we sort of have a vague like upside of what this might do for more units, but like I would really want to like math the whole thing out of if we did this, net positive to the city's housing target or revenue, but like the park fee impact. So again, I could like really say like what am I voting on? So I would not be comfortable sending that recommendation to council absent that, and just sort of where I'm at on all of these. I would not send them as a recommendation. I would want staff to put in the work to really flesh these out before I would do it.
So I'm in agreement on the first one, like staff will put together.
Yeah.
I would trust staff to do a good job, but I can understand wanting to run it by us first. In terms of what information you would want, was there something other than a pro forma from a developer describing what the change in in number of basis points is? Because that's I think the most quantitative we can get.
You're talking about for the park fees one?
For park fees and for the IZ changes. I don't have that obviously for being able to fee out the last 5%. We just had the staff telling us that's a good idea and the developers telling us that's a good idea, which I think I'm comfortable with saying that's a good idea. But in terms of reducing our inclusionary zoning rate, you have developers telling you that it's a blocker, it's a significant changing that is it makes a significant change in the internal rate of return. And I think there's the report that I think the economically ideal, the maximum economically feasible point in some places is 0. Like we know the effect it has, like we have estimates of the effect it has. I'm not sure what other information is knowable at this point.
I'm trying to think of how to answer this without just saying the same thing again. Like, I'm uncomfortable sending a recommendation that changes these numbers absent like a full accounting of what we think this effect would be on like the city's various goals. So I don't know precisely like what targets I'm
I
asking.
don't think that's knowable. Like we can make up
I think
numbers,
it's-
but
I
they're
think-
really not knowable.
I think it's modelable more than this. And again, like since the item is, are we voting on things, recommending them to go to council? What I'm saying is I would not do that with this document in this form. I would want it to come with staff doing the work to model out based on, again, the public comment we heard of like, what are we really signing ourselves up for?
So if I seem like I'm being a little pushy, it's because I've been working on this since January.
That's why we're here.
Is that modelable? Is that doable?
We could do analysis. So the question is, if the proposal was adopted, what would be the fiscal impact of the reduction in park fees? So, I mean, obviously there's assumptions with that.
Yeah.
That we'd have to make, but we could come back with the best numbers we could on that.
I think it's the two, there might be more than two parts. This is oversimplifying it, but it would be the fiscal impact on park fees. And then what do we think this does for the city's housing targets or property tax revenue? But just like, we know that like on one end is the cost to park fees. What do we think the benefit would be to our housing targets? Something else. I mean, like, I assume for some of these other decisions, we've just had more of a, here's what we think the net would be than we have here. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I guess I'd say this. I'll bring it up. So at this point, I do have two planners.
Sure.
So, we could do some simple modeling, but I couldn't promise you a fiscal impact analysis of, running 4 potential projects through what's a reduction in parks fees, what's a potential fiscal impact to the city in terms of property tax. I mean, that's something that we definitely could not model. But in terms of knowable projects potentially in the pipeline, what they would or would not pay in park fees, and going back in history 5 years.
Sure.
To projects of this size and what we're paying park fees, I think that we could produce something like that.
So I want to just throw out from another perspective, like one of my constraints here was I don't have staff time and I don't have budget. So hence, like I cannot hire a consultant who is an economist to do this kind of thing. But what I can tell you is that we have had 0 of these projects over the last 5 years. And going from 0 of these projects to some projects will go from projects of this size will produce no park fees because there are none of them, to projects of this size will produce some park fees. It'll go from projects of this size produce no below market rate units because they produce no units, to projects of this size produce some below market rate units and some market rate units.
No, I mean, I remembered you said all this.
So like the worst case is if this doesn't unstick anything, we have what we have now.
I understand that, and I'm going to let the other commissioners speak now. The thing that we said we were going to do in this section is take a roll call vote on sending this to council. What I'm indicating is I would not do that. What I would do is on the first item, I would ask staff to come back with a recommendation that we could discuss first. And then I would love to see the in lieu proposal because that's the one staff had brought up that I think we heard from a couple developers. I'd love to see that one sort of fleshed out for us to discuss at this point. And then I would like to see the park fee discussion that Rob just mentioned. And I understand that may take some time because we don't have staff time at this point. But like for me, in order to pass this on to council, I need to see those things. I'm not going to throw a recommendation over the wall absent those things. That's where I'm at. Commissioner Zisser and then Alney for the non-subcommittee folks.
All right. You want to go first, Joe?
I'll go first and defer to Zisser.
I like it. Well, can I say for Commissioner, is that we're doing this because you, Mr. Chairman, said I need a subcommittee to give me advice on residential zoning, so we're doing this because of something you requested,
Yeah, I know.
so
Yeah.
just want to remind you. Thank you.
No, and I understand that, and I think things changed over the course of the year in terms of how much staff we had available to support these projects. And when we did the subcommittee last time, before it went to, I'm basically advocating for the same thing you and I did 2 years ago, which is we did a bunch of legwork, and then eventually we got staff to turn it into an ordinance proposal, and Stephen did a bunch of work to make sure that our, stuff was good. And I wouldn't go to council prior to that, is what I'm saying. So I don't think I'm actually saying anything different than how we did this 2 years ago. And I'm glad that you all have looked at it. Like, I do appreciate that. I'm just stating like where I'm at in terms of like how I would like it to proceed.
So there's a significant difference between we'd like staff to flesh this out and make it into specifics, and we would like staff to do some like consultant modeling type stuff. I think staff may have a limited ability to do that. I think that may have a limited ability to be doable. But if you're talking about more, I would like staff to flesh this out into a more specific proposal with, what would look like a regular staff report. That I fully agree with that. Like the thing I don't want to have happen is that every time we meet with this, we think, well, this is radical. You should wait and gather more information. Again, I started in January. We've been gathering more information.
But maybe there's a compromise in that I tend to agree that I wouldn't like to see the planning commission lose esteem and credibility by submitting to the council something that wasn't ready. At the same time, I'm getting a sense of volunteer burnout of doing a lot of work. So could we request funding to actually have some people do some real work on this?
No. I've asked. It's not available.
Well,
Like
that's
this
really
is
too bad.
yeah, this is what we have. And like at some point you have to make a judgment with the information that you do have. And it would be great if we had perfect information. It would be great if we had consultants. It would be great if we could spend, 6 figures on getting a couple of economists to report on this. But I'm confident that it would not change the underlying recommendations.
I listen to the chairman.
Well, I appreciate. You don't have to do that. I know you've been working on it since January, but it is August. This is the first time we've looked at this specific of a proposal. So I like want to be clear, like we haven't been reviewing anything this specific to actually debate on. And I don't think it's unreasonable that we would do more than one of these before doing it. So I know you've been working on it since January, but like it's not like in March was our first meeting. We looked at a proposal.
It's gone through a number of forms.
Yeah.
And for the record, Commissioner Bookbinder is doing 90+% of the work.
Okay, so I've said a lot of where I'm at. I would love Alan. Yeah.
My turn?
Yeah, please.
So I'm going to preface this whole thing about, to be honest and totally upfront, is that I've never been enthusiastic about this project, but it wasn't my call. Because I think we're doing something that's over and above what kind of our responsibilities are. But the other thing is that when this first came up, we had been only a year and a half away from the fact that we'd already done this. That just a year, I don't know, 2 years ago, we got a chance to review, council got a chance to review, the planning department put forth ideas on how to improve the housing opportunity. Okay, so there was a many month long process that came to the planning commission that the planners put in front of us and took to council, and it included much of what we're talking about, everything from park fees to inclusionary housing to changing all these things. So I didn't feel like this was necessary. that it had already gone through the process very recently. On top of that, it's not just Campbell's problem, as we've always talked about. This is a problem with 500 municipalities. Okay, we're not the only guys that have this problem. Okay, and the state has been extremely aggressive, as we all know, in the last 3 or 4 years of putting forth God knows how many laws associated with the housing crisis. Okay, my take is the state has done more than I wanted them to do. Okay, so I don't think Campbell needs to do more. Okay, so in fact, I was on board with the state for a long, long time until a couple of more recent laws that I'm not so much on board with. That was SB 1123 and SB 79. I think they've gone way beyond reason. Okay, but that's a whole nother discussion. So I've never been enthusiastic about this. And Adam, we're not here to satisfy, in all due respect, I know you put a lot of work in this, but in fact, you came up with a draft 1 month after this was assigned. But the very next month, it was like you had this 6-page draft. Now, I understand that because this is what you like to do, but we're not responsible for approving what you've spent 8 or 9 months on, just simply because you've spent 8 or 9 months on it. Okay, if I'm not agreeable to it, I'm not going to be agreeable to it. Okay, and so that doesn't factor into anything. And the other thing is I know you like to do this stuff anyway. So my guess is that you were like really, really into it. But that's beside the point. But here's a couple of things I want to talk about. I think you've misframed this whole problem. You talk about projects are stuck, and that with the exception of but the fact is the projects, with the exception of this gentleman's project, which I would love to have. I would hate for us to miss this because this is the only big rental project we have. And it would be a boon to the housing for Campbell. But I don't think we should formulate our process or our ordinances around getting one project. Okay? So if we want to get this one project, and I don't know what the city is allowed to do, if we want to get this one project, we should negotiate this one project, okay, with the developer. And we should save doing new ordinances or changes for the bigger picture. One pro forma doesn't prove anything to me. And now, as far as projects that are going on, we have projects going on. We've got 2 East Campbell projects. We've got Mr. Pringle's project. Hopefully, it's on the list. We've got the Computer Tech project. We've got the Llewellyn project. We've got the Latimer project. We got the West Hamilton San Tomas Expressway project, which is like 170 units. We've got East Campbell Lee project, which is 70 units. We've got multiple small multi-unit zoning starter home projects. We've got the Virginia Avenue project. That list is like 1,200 units that are in theory on the pipeline, and there's more to come. I just saw one that Jim Harrison put in for West Campbell Avenue, like where the Round Table Pizza is, and it's 40 or 60 units. Okay, so there are projects in process. It's not enough projects to meet our RHNA, but as you all know, I've said more than one time, we're not going to meet our RHNA. And we're not going to meet it along with about 300 or 400 other municipalities. Because yes, the math doesn't work. The developers aren't there. The ordinances, that even with all the state laws that have come down. Okay? I'd like to see the 100% affordable projects get back on track. I don't know how to do that. We don't have the money to do that. The only thing I like in all this is the possibility of doing the 15 to 10 in lieu. Okay, that's the only thing that's particularly appealing to me, as the chair has also mentioned. And so I don't, and you know, just as an aside, you know, when you list the below market rate, it's not a static. It's not 50%. It's not 80%. It's a range. So if you're going to list it, you got to list the ranges from extremely low to moderate. There's 4 ranges. Okay. It's not at 50%. It's not at 80%. I wish people would understand that better, including our commissioners. Okay. As far as your research, Adam, I looked at some of this research, and as Susan mentioned, what they're doing in Auckland, New Zealand, what they're doing in Germany, I'm not sure how applicable that is. And you know, in the Auckland, New Zealand, this was about market rate housing reduces nearby rents. In Auckland Museum, the research said it was mixed and effects were modest. In Germany, it said 1% increase in supply lowers rent by 0.2%. In New York City, high-rise rentals, 10% increase in housing stock results in 1% decrease in rents. Minneapolis, when they raised, rents were increased with new housing. Okay, none of this tells me that this just that this says anything to support anything. Okay, it actually doesn't sound like it supports anything. Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention, which I've mentioned before. Okay, and the Portland one. The Portland example has nothing to do with Campbell. Portland example was they had put in an ordinance that said for buildings with 20 units or more, okay, you're going to have BMRs for buildings with, not projects. So people started building projects with buildings that were 19 units. So you could have a project that had 6 buildings, each of 19, and they bypassed the BMR requirement. That's not what we have here. Okay, that's kind of a crazy thing. Now they repealed that. Okay, and now they're funding their BMRs with tax breaks of some sort. So the Portland example makes no sense at all. Okay. So, you know, I've never been, you know, from the very beginning when we talked about this and I learned about this, you know, I've never been a super advocate of BMRs in the first place, but it's like, okay, you're going to get something from it. But the math doesn't make it get you the RHNA number. You can't build enough market rate units with BMRs to get even halfway there. You know, now it's something, but it really requires us to build fully affordable projects. Okay, and that's what we should be focusing more of our attention on. The problem is we don't have the money, we don't have the land to help them with it. Okay, and the last thing I want to say, just in general. So I'm not in favor. I'm in favor of the chair's position on taking this and letting planning maybe make a couple of recommendations that they can bring back to us, and then maybe we'll recommend it to the council. But you know, my contention about all this stuff is, you know, we're building almost all townhomes, and we ought to talk about the missing middle. Okay, some people talk about the missing middle, which means it's a variety of housing, cottages, duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes. Okay, but missing middle is associated with the economics too. They're supposed to be affordable. Okay, otherwise missing middle doesn't mean anything. Yeah, you can build duplexes and triplexes and townhomes, but if the townhomes cost somebody $1.5 million, which is what they do in Campbell, the ones on Union Avenue that just got built that we approved a couple of years ago, there's 7 little ones that are 3 stories. They're on the market for $1.4 million. The Llewellyn ones are on the market for $1.8 to $2 million. Okay? All the townhouses that we're building, which is most of what we're building, are going to be $1.5 to $2 million. You know what the household income is required for that? It's $300,000 to $400,000. That's 50 to 100% over the median income. That's not affordable. Affordable is supposed to be for people who are 50% or 80% or 30% of the median income. And we're not hardly building any of that, which is why in the last cycle we ended up with 33. Okay, this cycle, we potentially, if we were to do all the ones on my list here at this moment, including this gentleman's, we will have 140 below market rate units in the coming years. Okay, and that's like 1/10 of the requirement for the RHNA. Okay, so there's a really bigger problem than us fiddling around with this stuff. I don't believe any of this stuff will make a huge impact. And I don't know what the answer is.
If I can just to clarify, do you believe that we're making that the city is producing enough housing, or that we need to produce more?
I just quick time check, 9:40. That's a very open-ended question, and I would love to get
a short question.
I don't think the RHNA numbers.
Forget RHNA. Do you think what we're producing now is enough, or we need to produce more?
I think we have stuff in the pipeline that if it goes through, it has some meaningful impact.
So the rate of production that we've been going at is good enough or not good enough?
Are somewhat arbitrary.
Not talking about RHNA.
Okay, but no, because we'll be lucky if we get halfway there. We'll be lucky if we get halfway to RHNA, which would be 1,500 units. Okay, now we have a shot at that, and actually, I think considering the last cycle we built 600, and the cycle before that we probably built 400 or 500. It certainly is an improvement, but the population of the county and the state has flattened over the last
Right,
decade
because
or
people
so.
are being displaced and we don't make places for them to live.
Okay.
I just really straightforward.
But
Hold on, please, just
empty if you look on Zillow.
our vacancy rate is very low. That's why the prices are high. I'm straightforwardly, the project is intended to improve or increase housing production in the city of Campbell. Do you think that we should be trying to do that or not?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it sounds like to state your position,
My position is in line with yours.
Okay.
I don't see us approving something, certainly not tonight, and I think it's a subset, a smaller subset of this.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Hawley.
Nothing to add.
Oh, you probably should weigh in because there's 2 people on the subcommittee. There are 2 people who said,
All right, well, here it goes.
yeah,
I hate to discourage people so hard to do the right thing.
yeah,
And I keep coming back to it's hard to fight the Fed. Fed sets interest rates, and a flip with the Fed is going to do more than the totality of everything we've discussed here. And income inequality is a civil rights issue of our time, and there's nothing we can do to deal with that. But we can sure pack Campbell full of people if we want to. So good luck.
Matt, do you want to go first?
If I can chime in on, so I hear my fellow commissioners this are saying we don't have any money, and that's it. And well, we're trying to come up with a way to get the money. We're trying to come up with a way to the projects are not starting to give them a shot at starting. And create and generate the money that they would pay because they do pencil out. That's the premise of these proposals, Um, uh, it's that for only that purpose to be able to get the money. So with the get the money, build the affordable housing that you are so passionate about. Thank you.
Well, and I think the in lieu fee thing, where they pay the last 5%, probably has far more impact than anything else. If we were to change that.
Right, but that applies to, larger density projects. Campbell is a smaller city, so you don't get too many of those, happening. Anyway.
So, just want to address a few things, and I'd like to make a proposal. So, first, I recognize that we are not Auckland, we are not Germany, we are not San Francisco. There is not another city of comparable size directly adjacent to us which has made these changes and we can crib from. But this does not mean we can know nothing. It is a constant of everywhere it has been looked, everywhere it has been investigated, that producing more market rate housing in a hot market reduces rents compared to the counterfactual. It would be extraordinary if this applied everywhere else, but the laws of economics stopped at the borders of Campbell. I don't think that's the case. I realize that there's kinds of information that we would like to know, that we want to be cautious. And
These other places are you talking
Auckland, Honolulu, San Francisco, Austin, everywhere somebody has managed to do a test to say, hey, what happens where you build new housing? It reduces rents compared to the counterfactual. I also linked to a review article trying to review all of the various times this has been studied. If that actually did not happen, it would be a machine for making infinite money. If the rents never went down, you could just build and build and build and make infinite money. That would be pretty novel. I recognize that I'm asking people here to make judgment based on imperfect information, and we have a tendency to try and be cautious. And I remember specifically with the Cresley project, I remember it was first proposed in 2016 out of an abundance of caution. We said, I don't think this project is quite right. We'll punt on it. And we punted on it. And that's still a dirt lot today because we wanted to be cautious. Caution is not free. Not doing anything is not free. And my frustration does not come from not wanting to do the work. I'm happy to do the work. I've been doing the work. I will continue to do the work. My frustration comes from having changed and adapted this and gotten every bit of information that is reasonably possible to get. And I think what people really want is to see how this affected, say, Los Gatos when they did this, but Los Gatos didn't do this. And no choice we make is going to be free. Yes, I suppose if we make changes, we'll be accountable for that. But I care less about taking the blame for something than I do about fixing the problem. And we can either choose to try and fix the problem or say, well, let's be cautious and not do anything. And that's exactly how we got where we are. Now, in terms of what I want us to do, I think Commissioner Fields is right. This could stand to be fleshed out by council. So I would like to take the proposal 4 parts as exists, have staff make it into a proper proposal. It could go to city council and we will debate and decide on that based on what staff brings us. I will take that, like, I am not staff. There are things that are not in proper legal language there. And if we don't want staff to, fill in the blanks for us, I very much understand. I think the way this should go is staff brings us back in a fleshed out way. We debate that. We send it, the parts we approve of, to council, and council votes on it.
That's similar to what my position was. I think the only delta being, and maybe this could be a prioritization to staff, that I think Zisser and I are in the same place, that the two we would prioritize first would be the in lieu fees, and then secondarily the streamlined permitting contingent on like what the threshold is. I would put those at the top.
Those seem like the less controversial items.
Does that seem reasonable?
Sure. And this can be brought back piecemeal. If staff can bring those back faster, I'm happy with that. Is that like, if everyone's okay with that, we can do a straw poll and staff can bring that back to us as it's ready. Is that something staff is comfortable with doing? I realize that you do not have any of this on your work plan.
You do realize when it's ready is when it's ready. So
Yeah. No, I mean, and I say this knowing we have two planners. This may take time. And I appreciate everything you're saying. Having seen where we had success on this before, I feel like the staff analysis is a critical component. And so I know I'm asking for something that is delaying this. But I feel strongly it's something we need because I respect the work of staff and what they've done on this. So like absent it, I'm not comfortable.
I appreciate. Sure.
I get that there's not enough staff to go around. We're shorthanded, but that also means that there's payroll we're not paying right now. Can't we use some of that payroll to hire some outside person to dress this thing up?
We have a contract planner somewhere, don't we?
these are broader questions far beyond the planning commission. So at this point, the best answer I can give you is no.
So if you can bring these back piecemeal, I think some of them are pretty straightforward, like which ones go to planning commission and which ones go to an administrative permit kind of thing, or the fee out the last 5% is pretty straightforward to bring back to us. We could bring those back sooner rather than the other parts.
I would say my best guess is sometime in the fall. You'd see those. Yeah.
Do you feel at this point, okay, so it seems like we're getting to a place where we're recommending staff, as time allows, to come back with a full analysis or as reasonably possible with staff's recommendation that we would debate at a future meeting. That may be piecemeal. We've indicated the two that we would like first. We're all, yes?
I would agree that those two would be the simplest for staff to write up.
Okay. Well, I think we can make a motion on that. Would someone like to make that into a motion?
I'll do my best.
Do we really need a motion? Do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion?
You do not need a motion for this.
Could we just a roll call vote on what I just said then?
Yes, or a straw poll. That's fine too.
Yeah, we can straw poll.
There's 5 of us, so I don't think we can. Okay, a straw poll. So
Just a hands thing.
who is good with what I just said in terms of next steps? All right, that's 5. Okay, hey, we did it. That's all right. Okay.
How sinister of you.
I realize that was contentious, and again, I want to thank you both for putting in the time on this and having a debate on this. And I do think this is what the process can look like of having these discussions, and I appreciate the work you did on it.
Thank you.
All right, so we have. I've closed the agenda doc. It's been so long since I was in there.
We have nothing to report.
So the other subcommittee has nothing to report, which then takes us to the report of one Rob Eastwood.
I'll make this as pithy as I can. As mentioned, we're recruiting for 2 planner positions. We have interviews tomorrow, so I hope you give us our best blessings on filling those positions. Just 2 reports from our last council meeting last week. The council did adopt Campbell's first ever climate action and adaptation plan. So that was a 2-year process, and the city does now have a climate plan. And more pertinent to the Planning Commission, the council adopted an interim ordinance related to SB 9 450 and objective standards, notably to do some changes to soften the subdivision requirements under SB 9, and also to soften the objective standards in 2 neighborhoods of the city where there's objective design standards at San Tomas and Campbell Village. Under the council vote last week, those design standards will only apply to new residences, but not additions or remodels of existing residences. And those changes went into effect immediately last week. Other than that, I do think we do have a business item coming to you for your next meeting. So you will be back, likely back in here in 2 weeks. And that's all I have.
New commissioner?
Knew I was going to be asked that question. To the best of my knowledge, the next council meeting, the clerk is working to schedule those interviews for that commission seat to get filled.
Okay, so you re-interview. You re-interview it. There was no
They,
acceptable.
I believe they are interviewing. Yeah.
And this is for Corey's seat.
This is for the vacancy. Yeah.
And what about mine?
I was going to the best of my knowledge,
Okay.
I believe they
Because
can.
the end of my term is technically August, is why I'm asking.
I've heard from the clerk, they intend to, at the next council meeting, to make a designation of your position to keep it as is, in, at least for the next month or two.
Okay, so they could post it.
Can we recommend perpetuity?
Are you planning on not re-upping?
No, it's this was supposed to have been posted already, and it needs to be posted for 60 days, but it was not posted. And so it's just simply, I think we're just making sure we do all the right things. So that's why I'm asking. I like doing this. So great. With all of that said, it is 9:54 p.m. I hereby adjourn this meeting of the Planning Commission to our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight on August 25th. Have a good night.